Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Relative Roads podcast. I have to air some things out because in the last episode, in the intro, I had mentioned that there were some things that I didn't necessarily believe anymore. And I wanted to talk about that. At some point when I was talking to Keith, I caught myself telling him essentially to just stop talking about his problems and just put a smile on and do that and wherever you go, because that's what society needs. And I don't agree with that thought process anymore. I've been privy to some new knowledge, obviously. I mean, this whole thing has become like a self-reflection experiment. I didn't intend it to be that way, I think, but inevitably, having to listen to myself. And here's the thing, okay? I realize that you can tell what kind of junk is in your mind when you listen to your own dialogue in a conversation. And I have a lot of junk in my mind. And to people with a bigger intellect, I apologize. I'd like to keep you here and comfortable, but it's gonna be hard to listen to at times. I am fumbling around in the dark, quite literally. Anywho, what else have I learned? Well, in general, about people, everybody is a theorist, really. And some of us have artistic minds, scientific minds, a hybrid of sorts. We're all kinds of things. Clearly, we are all very, very different at times. But not really. Like we're that's what I've noticed, is that we all have all this junk in our head that we think is the truth about things, including myself. And it's all just to get along, if you want, people with nice words, they get themselves places with their words. I've noticed that's what school's about, right? Teaching people to be expansive in their linguistic skills, people who speak multiple languages, they're better off, much better off. Anyhow, those are just some random thoughts about what's going on in me. It's fun. It's a blast, actually. I don't think I can do it enough. Well, actually, that's not true, but I feel like I currently am not doing it enough. If I could do it a couple times a week, it would sort of, I don't know what it would do, but that's what I think. Tempted to stop recording and go back and listen to this, but this is really what's in my head. I've been thinking about, the fact that almost every episode, if not every episode, I've talked about race. And I wonder if I'm the one who's opening the door for some bad habits. I don't know. I thought it would be relevant, but I think just because I'm making it a point to be, that's just a thought. I don't know. But whatever comes natural, Sometimes people want to talk about things and they've been wanting to get it off their chest, and there we go. So I'm trying to get better at talking. That's my ultimate goal. Get better at talking. So that, so it's easier for you to listen to. Well, I think that's it for me. But as far as this episode that I am releasing, this is with my friend Reginald. Reginald was an actor when we met in 2007, and we did some student films together. We mainly hung out and partied a lot together, and that was a different time in our lives. And since then, Reggie has traveled out to LA to give the old full-time acting a shot, and he had his experience of that, and we do get heavily into that, and how he was feeling throughout that quick little side journey there. As he is from Sacramento, he's been in Sacramento his whole life. Moving to LA was a pretty pretty big deal for a minute there. So glad he's back. I love hanging out with the guy. He's a special man to me. Anyways, without further ado, I bid you Reginald Bohannon.
I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. And now it's time for another episode of Relative Road.
Starting right now, because everything you're saying is so much.
When it comes down to like finding a purpose, that's where a lot of people go to what's been done before, said before. Like, oh, somebody else has found purpose in something. Let me just find where I plug into. Mm-hmm. But I've never really thought that way, and that's probably what's kept me from any great success in anything I've done lately or in my life, which is. No, what feels right? What feels right to do to help people, to serve people? You know, we're a social species and we want to help each other in whatever best way we can. So, you know, it all comes back to what have I always found happiness in, what have I always found joy in, and that's performing and, you know, and making people laugh or eliciting an emotional response, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think back to all the good thing, like all the fun acting that we did on Phase, and then flashing forward to, you know, getting into theater in the Bay Area when I was there, and falling in love with that. Mm-hmm. Just seeing that stage, I was like, no, I need to be up there, and just I think like when there's an empty stage in an empty auditorium, you'd rather be on the stage side than on the seat side. Mm-hmm.
There's a playfulness that sort of like takes over,
and it's when and I did community theater, so it was like, and it was in the Oakland in like Berkeley, so I was the token white guy in the thing, and I had a blast, and it was so much fun, and I got to, because it was community theater, I got to do the thing where like, oh, so and so's not showing up today. Hey, guess what? Do you know his lines? You're doing that character too. And then it's like, ooh, and then figuring out the costume change that you have to do like in the next 2.5 minutes before you have to be back up there.
Yeah.
And I got so excited. I got pumped by that. So here I am back in Sacramento, and I'm telling everyone, yeah, I'm going back to school. Well, what are you going back to school for? I don't know yet. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And then I feel like Amanda's starting to get frustrated with my indecision. Like, uh-oh, here it comes. She's gonna, So I'm like, you know what? No, I don't need to do anything important. I don't need to make lots of money in order to help people. That's not, that shouldn't be the thing. Yeah. Like, Amanda got into veterinary medicine not because it's a big moneymaker, because it's not. She got into it because she has a drive and passion to fix animals, to heal the pets.
Sure.
So it all comes back to, what's your drive? What's your passion? Well, my drive and passion is to entertain people, to tell a story, to help tell a story, to put stuff together. And so that's how I decided on going back for theater. It's like, you know what? Since I was a kid, this is what I love to do. Let me see if I could get into doing this professionally and learn all the real skills that are involved in theater production. And that's I'll have to take a class on costuming and lighting and all that stuff and get my head around the whole thing.
Yeah.
But as I think about doing that, I think, oh man, I'm looking forward to all that shit. Mm-hmm. Instead of like with psychology, oh, I'm looking forward to that class and that class, but I don't really want to do this. I don't want to deal with that. Like, there's, in any field, when you find things that you like and a lot of things that you don't like, it's like, ideally, if you have the privilege, and I do, because my girlfriend makes decent money, and she said that if I'm in school, I don't have to work.
Sure. As long as you're being productive.
As long as I'm being productive.
Absolutely. That is a privilege. That is a luxury.
It is, and I'm grateful for it every day, and I don't take advantage of it, and I'm very wary of that. So here I am. I'm now after a year and a half, like 2 years of just whirlwind anxiety and, all the moving and moving to new towns and stuff, I'm finally feel like I'm getting recentered. We get moved back in, and then a week from then, John and I are working on the comic again.
Oh, okay.
Which has been dormant for a year.
Yeah.
But now we're on page 10 of the first issue.
Nice. Hold that thought.
Yeah, okay.
Let me get rid of this.
The kitten?
Yes.
Oh, kitten.
The kitten into your dungeon. Goodbye. We'll get a whiff of that. Woo. Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to the whole working in,
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to wear these or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, why not?
Try it and
Put
see.
on the headphones.
We're on whatever.
Okay, this actually works. This is good.
Yeah, and then whatever adjusting audio-wise I can do later, but you know all that.
Yeah.
Going back to not necessarily wanting to work in the jails.
Yeah.
It sounds like when you're talking, you have a tendency to want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
In every effort, and probably because anxiety and depression take over.
Absolutely it. It's when you're and you know this, but speak from my experience. After a few days of specifically hard depression or some anxiety shit, when you're
bring this closer to you.
When you're when you're struggling with those nasty toxic thoughts, afterwards there's some clarity in which I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I don't want any of the crutches that I usually use to deal with this. I don't want the sugar. I don't want, what I want is, I want to go to the gym. I find that I want to work out. I want to get the natural endorphins and things like that. But there is a constant search for comfort. I think that's a human thing. And it's like, if you're choosing comfort all the time, if you're avoiding conflict and you're avoiding hardship, no matter what, that can be a problem. And here's where we can talk about philosophy of picking and choosing your battles.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I've got my own psychological issues to deal with, am I the best person to be helping other people deal with their psychological issues?
Yeah.
It's the basic what it comes down to. It's on an airplane, you want to make sure you get oxygen before you give your kid oxygen.
Sure.
Because they might not be able to get their own oxygen. Maybe Declan has the frame of mind to oh no, Dad's passed out. All right, here you go, Dad. But he's old enough now. I think he can get that.
Sure.
But back to the psychology thing. So if I'm troubled and I go in and I'm a psychologist, and I'm in the middle of anxiety, can I trust that skewedness of my mind to not give, bad advice to somebody else?
Sure.
I don't know. And maybe that's what all that training is supposed to do.
Yeah.
But do I want to go through all that training to do that, to take on... Because one thing that psychologists and psychiatrists often need after they get into the field is their own psychologist, psychiatrist, which I probably need anyway. But all that to me just seems to be overwhelming, and I have a great fear of getting into that and doing all that schooling and coming out at the other end hating it.
Sure, yeah, of course.
Whereas I don't really think I'll get that with a performing arts kind of path.
Sure.
Yeah. That's what it comes down to is am I going to be burned out and sure, yeah, I'm a psychologist now and I fucking hate my job.
Yeah.
And what did you go through all that schooling for in the first place?
Right.
So it's tough. And if you don't have that inherent desire and passion to do that kind of help, to help people in that kind of way, it's something that I would think really long and hard about before committing to that kind of thing.
So with knowing some of your history and how your lifestyle used to be, would you say that your coping mechanisms aren't up to par because for quite some time you essentially skirted around stressful situations? So in other words, you smoked a lot of weed.
Well, no, that's not it. Where I'm coming from, and what I've thought about a lot in that regard is a lot of my skirting around my issues was done in my 20s.
Yeah.
That's where I started drinking.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I'm
That's
anxious,
right.
I'm
Yeah.
depressed, and it's all these things. It's my environment. So
Yeah.
if I modify my brain chemistry with this readily available alcohol, that's everywhere, that
Yeah.
everyone brings to everything. Hey, not only do I lighten up and it alleviates that anxiety, but it opens me up to be more, social
Sure.
and allows me to ignore all of my issues.
Yeah.
And that's what it quickly became that.
Yeah,
So it was
yeah.
like, and especially after we would film the show, it'd be like, oh, had such a blast doing this. Let's keep it going. I want to stay in this frame of mind where I'm not dealing with my own shit.
Yeah.
Booze, even better. All right. And we partied and we had so much fun and all the hangovers and
But all
that
your
stuff.
shit's still there
And your shit's still there.
when the storm passes.
And so when you spend your whole 20s using alcohol to avoid your anxiety and depression, and then in my later 20s it started to exacerbate the depression. So it's like, not only I'm going to the bar and I'm doing karaoke just to do that performance, and that's what I'm there for, but while I'm there, what am I going to do but drink?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the point I was trying to make, without
Yeah.
being so specific to marijuana,
Yeah.
but using outside, resources to
Right.
kind of get around your issues or ignore your issues, you start to lose the ability to cope with stress,
Right.
and you never really start training yourself. You don't train yourself to cope, and so therefore now in a much more healthy lifestyle, you're highly aware of anxiety, of your own anxiety, your own depression, and you don't feel that it would do anybody else a service to get involved in something is going to stress you out. But at the same time, you're now learning how to be better in your sober mind,
Right.
which is going to take time and training, and you may not ever be in a position to go into a highly stressful situation and cope well, but if you train yourself more and more, you'll be able to handle more and more stressful situations.
Oh, I agree.
Does that make sense?
That's why it's like, these days, I only find myself drinking when I'm, visiting family.
Yeah.
Like go to my dad's. Oh,
Sure.
here, I'll have a beer, sure. But it no longer, it doesn't even now, it doesn't do what it did for me back then. It's
Right.
like, it's just a beverage. And if it doesn't, if all you have is, Bud Light and Coors Light, I'm going to skip the beer. Like,
Yeah.
give me, I don't drink very often, so give me, one of those craft beers that's supposed to taste real
Right.
good. Because that's really the only reason I drink now is
Yeah.
for that.
I relate.
And it feels so weird because,
It is.
and then of course, years ago, before when John was diagnosed and weed became readily available in my environment, I started to smoke a little bit, found that it did help me kind of, when you moderate those kind of substances, the same thing I think with psychological drugs that are prescribed.
Of course, yeah.
Just like, well, I don't know about alcohol, but when you moderate with things like weed and with, and of course you have your other moderate drugs that people use to lighten up. I find, anyway, let me get to the point. I find that as long as you're not like smoking to get totally blitzed and couch locked and just out of your mind, if you're responsible, you can, oh man, I'm having so much trouble, like, especially with creative processes. Like, I get caught up on, oh, this is a great idea. Let me get started on writing this down. Oh, but it's stupid. People aren't, no, that's stupid.
You
No.
get in your own way.
You get in your own way.
Yeah.
But if you have something to help kind of dislodge that
Sure.
that thought, and for me, it's a little bit of weed once in a while.
Sure.
When I'm getting into a creative process, it's like, okay, now I'm not worried about it being stupid. I'm just going to write it. And then later I'll go back and see if it really is stupid.
Yeah.
Or if that was just me getting in my way.
Yeah.
But yeah, I understand. I have many friends that have addictive personalities. And I know that that's not for everybody. And I know it kind of makes people antsy. So I'm in no way like blanket saying that people should do anything that makes them uncomfortable or they're uncomfortable with or they fear might make them uncomfortable.
Sure.
Like, I wouldn't push weed on Nate because he doesn't do well with that kind of thing.
Fair enough. Okay.
But
do you think that it's justified in having a vice for everybody, or do you think that people can exist, can be productive with just their basic brain chemicals?
people are productive with their basic brain chemicals, but I think, well, number one, I think vice is something that's subjective. And there's always going to be a gray area. There's like, if you like having drinks once in a while, if you like having a drink after work, or if you like going out once a week and having drinks with your friends, that's not a problem. And even if you are a person who has a beer every day after work as kind of your habit, if you're maintaining good relationships with people, you're happy with your job, if you generally have a happy life and you have a drink every day, I have no problem with that.
Agreed.
But if you're a person whose habits can get in their way, then find something else. And I'm not saying like, if you're an alcoholic and you need to go to AA, no cigarettes, no this, no that, no nothing, because any one of those things, people need a way to let loose. People need something other than productive. People need to relax.
But you have to retrain yourself to be without those things, and it's not an overnight.
No, it's not. Like, when I stopped drinking, when I made the decision to like not just cut back, because when Alex died, it was like, oh, I need to cut back on my drinking, because the only thing that killed that guy was he was drinking too much.
Yeah.
And that really changed my mind about it.
And for the sake of the podcast, Alex was how old when he died?
He was 27 or 28.
And can you kind of briefly tell what happened?
So he was visiting his dad. He and his dad had a good relationship, from what I can tell. But they drank a lot together. And he was at his dad's house, and they were both drinking. His dad went to bed. Alex, after a night of heavy drinking, decided to go home. And he didn't make it off of his dad's front porch. What happened was there were 2 steps leading up to the door. He slipped and fell on one of those steps and cracked his head open on the walkway by the lawn. So his dad found him bled out in the morning from his head.
Wow.
Yeah. And he bled out fast because he had a high blood alcohol content.
His blood was thin.
That's what the autopsy found. So that really affected me in a big way.
Absolutely.
That it took me. I'm still processing some of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's been years. It's been like 8 years now.
Yeah.
But that really changed me. So in my early 30s was all about weaning myself off of alcohol, which that part was surprisingly easy. It was the not having the social outlet, not the bar, because after we all got to our mid-30s, the house parties kind of dried up. So I was only drinking at the bar, and I was doing karaoke drinking like every night. So after Alex died, in my early 30s, I stopped going to the bar. And I was like, oh, I'm living with John and Nate and Amanda now, and there's plenty of good TV shows to watch. I will just, instead of eating real quick, coming home, eat real quick, get ready, go to the bar, I would come home, eat real quick, settle down, hang out with John, chit-chat, we'd smoke a little bit, watch TV. And I started losing a lot of weight. And I started wanting to eat healthier. I started wanting less sugar, and pretty soon my craving for alcohol went away. It took 6 months. But then I wasn't craving alcohol anymore, and the only thing I really missed was going to the bar and singing.
Yeah.
And that's like, I can deal with that. I can deal with that loss if it means a healthier me.
Do you think it was? Did you ever try to go to the bar without drinking and just to sing karaoke and maybe sipping on water or something?
Yeah, I did. I would go. I'd go and get like a Diet Coke, and I'd do a song or two and then leave.
Okay.
Because one thing that you don't really have much of a tolerance for when you're not drinking is a whole lot of drunks.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
And it's not like they're having fun and I'm not. It's like, oh man, these people are annoying.
You're just not on that level anymore.
You're not. And that's why I stopped. And after all that, I stopped even wanting to go to the bar and karaoke because it's like, I'm going to perform. I want to perform. I want to do my best.
Yeah.
And I found that, even when I would go and have a beer, like more than 2 beers, and I'm not singing the way I want to anymore.
Sure.
So it's like it's about the performance to me. That's what it became about. I haven't done it in so long.
Just that natural adrenaline.
It's that's the high that I've decided I wanted to chase. It's the high of being on stage.
Somewhat healthy. Somewhat healthy, but yeah, more healthy.
There's a lot of self-loathing that comes with being a performer, and like, why do you want to spend so much time being
the human
somebody other than
condition
yourself?
is difficult just being. So
Right.
so if that's the avenue you take to cope with,
Yeah.
the self-image.
And I think you just hit on it right there. The human condition, because of the human condition, by its nature, is hard to deal with. Like, I'm not gonna give anyone shit for having a vice that they use to kind of disconnect from the nonsense for a few minutes. Yeah. Now, if you're doing it all the time, it becomes unhealthy, and you're not coping with, you're not coming up with the tools, you're not developing the tools that you need to deal with the stress of life.
Yeah.
And my first experience with that is with my 20s and alcohol. Like that, I don't know, do I regret anything? Not really. Even the bad things helped inform who I am today.
Yeah.
So if I didn't have the bad experiences, then like Amanda doesn't get hangovers. I don't know what it is about her genetics, but she is incapable of getting hangovers. So it's like, would I still be a drinker right now if I never got hangovers? I don't know, because there's more to it than the hangover.
Is she much of a drinker, even though you're not?
No, she's not.
That's helpful too.
It is. She is the I developed a healthier attitude towards drinking just in time to meet her, I think.
And I think that's right. I think in terms of karma and the law of attraction, as you become this version of yourself, you draw that attention from like-minded people. Same thing happened to me. I cleaned up my act. I was being ultra responsible for all of my energy, and I attracted a woman that was not a little girl. She was a woman, you know. She was taking care of her shit. She had just bought her house, and you know what I mean? And like, I didn't think that was my league.
Right.
However, in retrospect, I was performing. I was doing well as a single father in the world, trying to make my own way.
Yeah.
And I think that I saw myself through my efforts and gained confidence through my successes. And, all these things I established for myself gave me a new perspective on me.
Yeah.
And so I carried myself differently. And then I guess got ballsy enough to approach a woman I thought was out of my league. But I thought, with understanding the formula to success, you got to surround yourself with successful people. You have to ask the universe for what you want, and then you have to embody that. You don't just in words say, I want this. You have to embody that effort.
That's where I'm glad you made that statement and had that caveat there, because that's the one thing that always like makes me blow off the advice memes. I was like, you just go ahead and ask the universe for what you want. The universe will provide for you. It's like, no, you need to go after what you want.
You embody that question. That's how I saw it. Because the same thing for me, like when
you got to realize you are the universe. You are part of the universe. So you need to be the agent for that change.
Yes. And it will meet you halfway. Call it karma or whatever you want to say it is.
Right.
But
you'll get signs that you're on the right path.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll be told. And for me, it was like, oh, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm not going to the bar anymore. I'm getting better sleep at night. I'm more active. I'm losing weight. I'm eating healthier. And that all culminates into, oh, now you're in the place where I got the place where I'm happily single and I'm not going out trying to get laid at the bar and stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm happy and I'm single.
Yeah.
And that's when I met Amanda.
Yeah.
It was when, oh, my life is good. I'm on the right track, and now I met this girl, and she's on her path and I'm on my path, but we like each other, and you know, we made it through her internship down south and then a 3-year residency back east. And we're still going.
So
And-
it's so okay. So at what point did you move to LA?
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Moved to LA in December of 2018.
Okay.
We were there for just 6 months, or 7 months, or whatever it is. LA was pretty fun for me. It was a nightmare for Amanda, and then it became a nightmare for me on that aspect because she was just depressed all the time.
Oh, okay.
But in LA, you know, I get to LA. I'm already signed up on, you know, casting things like Backstage.com. Not a plug.
It's too late.
But get there. But I got there, and you know, you've got a thing for roles, for acting roles. So I booked a thing, like a 1 week being there. I'm like, oh, this is great. LA's going to be great for me. Yeah, not so much.
Gave you kind of a weird first impression.
Gave me a weird first impression of like, cool, I'm on a film set. I'm featured, and I'm going to be on camera if this gets finished.
Yeah.
And then I did a thing for a YouTube personality, and yeah, that video came out. I was on the cutting room floor on that shit. And then there was a student production I was in, also cutting room floor material. So it's like, man.
Wow.
So anyway, and so Amanda's working for a hospital I will not name because they were stiffing her for like $30,000 a year in pay.
Wow.
And so here we are scraping the barrel in LA, and she's like, you need to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
So I signed up for Lyft. I signed up for DoorDash. I drove for Lyft for 1 day. After, you know, like driving from, I don't know how familiar with are with LA, but driving from like Beverly Hills all the way to San Pedro. And
I'm
back.
not, but I've heard it's all a nightmare.
It is. And, oh, yeah, like she worked just inside the valley. We live just south of Beverly Hills. So without traffic, the commute from our house to her hospital was 20 minutes. But it was usually about an hour each way because there was always traffic.
Yeah.
That was a nightmare. So, like, coming back up here from there was a dream come true.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
Like, my family's up here. I have a new nephew. You're up here.
Right,
All
right.
my friends are up here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still kind of feel like I'm recovering from LA and everything.
Sure.
Yeah, that was quite an adventure, though. It was quite an adventure.
Yeah. It's interesting because my perception of that's all through social media of your experience there, you leaving. And I had this idea that you were just Reg walking through town, getting, you know, taking whatever luck you had, which seemed to be working out fine.
Yeah.
But it sounds like all the in-between was just, you know, more cons than pros after a while.
It really is, and it really speaks to, like, I haven't been part of a couple for this long ever in my life.
Yeah.
So I'm bumping into new experiences for me, which is like, in LA especially, realizing how much your partner's psyche can affect you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I always thought that I could be a rock, and I could be, you know,
Sure.
always be me, and
Yeah.
always be the cheerful me, and when she's feeling bad, I can be the thing that lifts her up.
It's a facade.
But when she's depressed for 6 months,
Yeah.
you get depressed for 6 months.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
there's no way around that. And
This is true.
and you know, so that was a trying thing, and that's what kind of broke me out of my wanting to be in LA thing.
Yeah.
And also in LA, I got FOMO for the first time in my life.
What is that?
Fear of missing out. Because we lived right down the street from Sony Picture Studios.
Yeah.
So when I would go out and like walk Madison or just go out and walk, every day I walk by that studio, I'm like, oh, Why am I not in there?
Sure.
I want to be in there.
Sure.
Anything I can do to get on that side of that gate. And so we'd watch TV and we watch Goldberg's, and they film Goldberg's there.
Yeah.
And I would, they'd film an outside scene. I was like, that's the rainbow. And soon, that's right down the street.
Yeah.
They were filming that a week ago or whatever it was, like a month ago. They were there. They were down the street from us. So.
How weird, yeah.
It is weird to and that's what kind of helped me, no, this is what I want. I want to be a performer, and I know it's not going to make me much money, and I know it's not going to be very successful unless I get a break or something, but doesn't change the fact that it's what I like to do every day.
Sure.
I'd like to my daily routine to wake up, make sure I got those lines in. We're doing these lines. I gotta get off book, and then we got to go in and do costume fittings. We got to do rehearsals. Oh, just thinking about doing that, that's the best. Mm-hmm. That's the best to me. I can't think of anything I'd rather do every single day.
Agreed.
And when you find something that you like to do every single day, I'm realizing now, a little too late because I spent my 20s drinking, that it's okay, you need to take a lot of responsibility in making that happen. You need to go sign up for, all the casting things, and you need to get that daily email thing reminder of hey, there's new roles, hey, there's this, hey, there's that, and you go after it. And then I realized that's when I come back to how lucky I am that I don't have to work in auditions around a day job.
You're not obligated to anything else but you and your craft.
Exactly.
And your woman.
And yeah, of course, she's of course number one, and I have no problem saying that.
Sure.
She's my partner.
That's how it should be.
This is the person you want to spend your life with. This is person is part of your life now. Mm-hmm. There's no you without her.
Yes.
And
it's what grown-ups do.
20-some-odd-year-old me, no, that's bullshit. Everyone's their own person. Blah 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 blah. You've heard it. I've said it before.
I've lived it before.
But coming around, and I think it's meeting somebody who has a compatible personality type with you. And, Amanda's not perfect. She's got depression, anxiety stuff too. But we find comfort in the fact that we both are aware of this and we can face it together.
Honestly, I think that anybody living in a modernized society is going to have some depression and anxiety. Inevitably.
Oh, yeah.
It is too fast-paced for where we are evolution-wise.
Yeah.
We're not built to cope with this busy schedule of doing other people's stuff.
Yeah.
If you're being creative and you're busy doing what you want to do, that's a very different experience.
Oh, yeah.
Very different.
And it's one that most Americans are not familiar with.
Absolutely.
Because we have such a be productive until you die kind of mentality.
Right.
That it's people don't think of being creative as being productive when it very much is.
Yep.
And I think that, not to toot my own horn, but I think at times like these where stress is just high across the board.
Yes.
You need outlets. You need the people that, hey, I took time so I can write this thing to make you laugh, to make you forget about all this bullshit for just a couple hours.
Sure.
That's very important. Not utmost importance. The utmost importance thing is whatever we can do about climate right now. But while people are getting stressed out about not being able to breathe in 50 years, take a little break and have a laugh, Because you're going to go nuts if you don't take some time once in a while to unplug from all that. Mm-hmm. Because, hey, if you want to be productive, you want to make a living, you got to plug into that shit.
Yeah.
There's no way. The society is stress. You got to plug into it. The people that are the off-gridders, those are no, I'm not going to plug into that. That's the ultimate stress avoidance technique.
Sure.
No, off-grid, I don't want to pay bills. I don't want... And hey, I've even been on that track. Mm-hmm. We've had many conversations about that as well. My whole idea of...
living on a commune.
The commune thing. It's it's a nice,
It'd be fun for a couple of weeks, and then it's I'm not cleaning his shit anymore.
Exactly. It's wait a minute, who's falling down on the crops here, man?
Yeah, agreed. I think there's a balance to be had. It takes an effort to find that balance, which is totally possible with whatever situation you're in. It is tricky, but if you work with a sober mind, you train yourself to cope with life stresses within reason. You can't go cold turkey all the time. I understand that.
Yeah.
But as you get older, you owe it to yourself to figure out who you are without all that bullshit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like there are built-in governors and roadblocks to these things, and you have to shoot yourself in the foot eventually if you want to continue on a bad path.
Yeah.
Like, you can be an alcoholic, but if you're not being able to afford all the alcohol you want to drink is keeping you from drinking as much as you want to drink, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I like weed, but I don't have enough income to be a daily, all day long wake and baker like Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Would I want to do that? No. I mean, I could do that for like a weekend. Like, hey, let's take a weekend and be blitzed the whole time, just to see what happens, just to see if I can do anything creative, or if I can like have any kind of thought process that's. Sure. But daily, no, that seems like boring and horrible to me. Like, to be stoned all the time that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, for me, like, yeah, when I first started smoking, it was like, oh yeah, let me push my own boundaries. Let's see where my limits are with this. I found them.
Yeah.
And now I know that I can. Do I want to go to my limit? No. Just like with alcohol, I don't drink to get drunk anymore.
Yeah.
I get a nice little buzz, and that's all I need.
Right. Or you get sleepy.
Yeah, that's the thing.
As an adult working in the world, you get sleepy.
That's the other thing with too much weed. You get sleepy, and I don't want to sleep. I want to do stuff.
Right.
Like, I want to draw. I want to write. I want to perform. I want to
many
sing.
options.
I want to do a house project. Like, I want to develop a little garden on our patio area.
That's
like,
where I'm at.
I want to do stuff now. Does taking a hit or two off the pipe in the morning before I get started on a project help me get like, all right, yes, I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Like, if you're using whatever external stimulus you have to help your productivity, good. If it becomes a hindrance to your productivity, that's where it switches over into bad. Yeah. And I think that's where most people go. That's where most people go because of the stress of life. They're like John, for instance. It's like, if I weren't here working with him every weekend on this, we still wouldn't have any work done on the comic, because he gets up at 4:30 every morning, goes to work every day throughout the week. He has to spend time with his girlfriend. She's in Vacaville. So it's real easy for him to take his one weekend day off that he has just to himself and say, nope, just going to be me today.
Yeah.
And I'm coming here, hey, want to work on the comics? Like, yeah, I do. All right, come on, I'll come over, we'll work. Even though he probably just wanted to relax. But it's like, you got to push yourself. And if you don't have, most people don't have the ability to push themselves, especially if you're depressed or anxious. You don't have a strong executive function,
right? Yeah,
because your mind is so bent up around all this that your executive function kind of takes a back seat, and you become like, oh, whatever I can do for the depression. Oh, sugar will help. Yeah, unhealthy.
Yeah.
So you need to work on your own abilities. You need to steel your own resolve. But we have a whole generation of people who are not trained to do that.
I know, and as listening to myself, I keep hearing, I don't want to be Mr. All Righteous Do-Gooder. Like, I'm not saying don't do anything. All I'm saying is it feels damn good to be responsible and to be productive and to do it and get what I need out of it, and as opposed to smoking weed and then feeling good about myself temporarily.
Yeah.
It just feels good to have a much more long-lasting effect by doing the right thing. And I do still like have moments where I'm like, I wish I could get high this weekend. I wish I could smoke. I really want to smoke. It happens. It's like there's this voice inside me that's like, don't you want to smoke?
That's the voice is like, you need a break. You need a break from your stress.
Yeah.
And what you do with that voice, I mean, that's all your decision. He was like, yeah, I could do that, but instead, like what you might say, knowing how I know you, you might say, instead of that, I'm going to hit the gym.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do like 30 minutes on the treadmill and then 30 minutes on this other machine. That'll get me some good endorphin. I think that'll do. And to that point, that's what I've started doing more often since moving back up here.
Yeah.
Is like,
it's a great coping mechanism.
Like if I wasn't coming over here today, since I knew Amanda likes to sleep in on her days off, and she has Mondays and Tuesdays, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday off. And so I'm like, okay, if she's going to sleep in until like noon or whatever, I would probably take a hit and then go to the gym that's in my apartment complex and do an hour and a half or so at the gym. And then that'd be it. And I wouldn't want to smoke until like this evening while watching TV with Amanda or something.
Sure.
But it's about, it is about being responsible not only for yourself, but being responsible with your vices.
Yeah.
Like, and I guess maybe that's the thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with a vice if you're responsible. That's the caveat. If you're irresponsible with your vice, you hurt yourself, other people get hurt. It's a bad path.
Yeah.
But if you're responsible, if you're I like to have a beer on the weekends kind of guy.
Yeah, it's not a problem, honestly.
I'm not going to give you issues with that. If you're the person who's like, I'm really trying to not drink at all, and then you have drink, I might say, hey, weren't you trying to not drink? Like,
yeah.
I'm not going to tell you, don't do that, but didn't you say that you
Yeah.
It's like, if your friends have goals, be a friend and help them keep those goals in mind.
Yeah. Well, check your friends and hold them accountable for who they say they are. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you want to be a good dad. Well, a good dad isn't one who drinks all the time.
Yeah.
So, got to cut out the drinking. I mean, even Nate's taken that to heart. He's like, oh, I'm a dad now. I can't drink as much as I used to. It's irresponsible.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, good. I'm glad that you said that.
You've got all these new babies in your life.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of new nephews and nieces. Well, nephews so far.
Do you foresee yourself and Amanda getting into the parenthood?
This has been a conversation that we've had on and off for the last 6 years.
Okay.
Lately, the conversation is, she's always been if it happens, if it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I made my choices in life.
Gotcha.
She chose her career. She chose to pursue her passion. And I've always been, I'm leaning towards no, but if it happens, it happens.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to try to make it happen.
Sure.
But now with all the news with the climate change and the global warming, and now even my dad is cued into it. My dad likes to avoid the stress of the world in a big way. Even he's saying, man, what am I going to tell Charlie when he's like 30 and it's hard to breathe and it's always hot and you can't go outside because you'll cook? Mm-hmm. What do I tell him? Hey, Grandpa, why they say that you could have done something. Why didn't you? Money in Washington, son, lobbyists, or, it's like, one thing that I cannot escape is the fact that, hey, we're going into a bad environment. Like, the environment's just going to get worse. If we did everything possible to curb carbon emissions and everything right now, we're still going to be no ice on Greenland in 20 years. Like, there's no way around that. And facing that, for the first time, Amanda's like, yeah, I don't know about kids with the way the world is going right now. Yeah. I really don't know. And in my 20s, that was like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to say, the world is going to hell. I don't want to bring kids into this. But now it's kind of a real thing. It's like, the world's going to hell, and I feel uncomfortable bringing a kid into this.
Yeah.
And I feel uncomfortable and driven to affect change because of the kids that have recently been brought into the world that are my family. Like, now my nephew is going to have to deal with this. So it's like, do we want to... Yeah, so short answer, I don't know about kids anymore because of all this.
Yeah.
That's
and it sounds like you're completely bought into this climate change.
There's like, everything's falling into place puzzle piece wise. All that ice melting.
Mm-hmm.
Miami is flooding on a regular basis now.
Yeah.
It's like, is it going to take Miami and Houston being underwater all the time for people to realize, oh yeah, things are effed?
Probably.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why we're not gonna.
It's probably gonna take that. It took the Twin Towers to wake up some things too. So
yeah, but one thing about this climate thing is now I'm transitioning. It feels naturally to vegetarian kind of diet.
For the sake only of carbon emission.
For not just that, but it's like kind of like how, and I'm just going on feelings here. It's like I stopped eating beef like, I don't know, 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel good. And I accidentally had it was Taco Bell, but I accidentally had a taco with beef in it. I ordered it without beef. I got beef anyway. And I got halfway through the taco before I realized, oh, this taco tastes gross. Oh, it's beef. So like I'm starting to lose my taste for that. And yes, okay, that's good for the environment. If everyone cut beef out for like one meal a week, that would do so much for the climate because of all the methane production, all that stuff. And I'm not saying, you should stop eating beef. That's everyone's own choice.
Bunch of farting ass cows.
Yeah. My flatulence has gone down since I've stopped that. And I don't know. I feel like I have more energy. I feel personally better consuming less meat. Now, I still eat a lot of fish and chicken, but...
Cheese?
I'm sorry. I'm not going to go vegan. I am not going to go vegan. Not going to go vegan ever. I love cheese too much.
Cheese is so good. My Adriana's mom works at an organic cheese thing.
Okay.
I don't know if it's a farm, factory, or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But we get hunks of like organic garlic cheese, portobello cheese.
Oh.
She made this gourmet macaroni and cheese with all that organic cheese. Yeah, it's like, I mean, we eat in this house. We eat 5-star damn near every day.
Yeah.
Every weekend we barbecue. I mean, tri-tip that's pre-marinated. I know you're not on the beef thing.
I know, but I still know how good tri-tip tastes. Like
Costco tri-tip. It's so damn good.
Man, when I was a teenager, Rayleigh's used to do tri-tips. Like they'd have like every Saturday and Sunday, they'd have the barbecue out in front of the store with tri-tips on one grill and like chicken on another grill. Every weekend we'd get a tri-tip fresh off the grill.
It's so good. I can't get over it.
I've
gained, I don't know if you can tell, but I've gained like 30 pounds in the past 3 years. And I'm so spoiled. I don't do the gym as often. I hardly get a workout anymore.
Yeah.
My workout is at work. I work Tuesday through Friday. And I have like 30 stops every day.
Oh.
And so it's like stop and go. So I'm running pretty much those 4 days. And then these 3 days, Saturday through Sunday, I'm fairly lazy, but at the same time,
well, you're being productive. You're just not being physically productive.
Well, I am kind of. I mean, like,
you're building that thing in the garage,
and we set up the house. Like me and her, like we love to go out and find little things for the house, and like the way this is set up, we went to model home. Nothing was in here for a while. It's just a couch, a little old ass entertainment center, a TV, and that was pretty much it. And then we started doing some window shopping. We went to model homes and we studied the home interior design, and we just started collecting, in our minds what our vision was. And even that was another dining room, and we converted it into an office. So that's kind of like our grown-up time, but we love the shit. She's my best friend. Like I've never had a relationship like this where this woman, like we speak the same language and sometimes it barely sounds like English. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we have a thing, and so this is our romance. We like to nest together, and so like mowing the yard together, all the household chores we enjoy. Yeah, in a much different way than when you're a child, where it's more of a a nuisance in your day.
Yeah, that's a big difference between your 20s and your 30s, I think. Especially as we're on our late. I mean, you're in your very late 30s now. If you're not 40
39.
Yeah. So, and I'm right behind you. And this is something I was talking to John about the other day, which is like, in our 20s, it was all about going to house parties and hanging out at people's houses, hanging out at friends' houses. But in your 30s, either if it's because you start having kids or you get married, it's more of a settled down thing, and you get more into the nesting. Then it's about, oh, how do I want my home to look? You're not happy with, whatever apartment you can afford in your 20s. Now, okay, we got this. Let's save up, not for booze and for going out, but for decor.
Yeah, totally.
And it's a settling down thing, and we fight so hard against that concept in our 20s. And
I don't know if it's
inevitable.
a fight, but you're just not interested.
Well, yeah, rather not fighting against it. But in your 20s, it seems insincere.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you 21? You're like, oh yeah, I'm settling in. Like, you're 21.
Yeah.
Settling in is for people in their mid-30s who are having babies and families and stuff.
Yeah. Go run amok. Go be a mess.
Go be a mess, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah. Totally. And I don't blame. It's funny, as I am now in my very, very late 30s.
Yeah.
And I either work alongside someone in their 20s or am somehow affiliated with a 20-something-year-old. It's interesting to see it from this perspective because I remember it almost like it was yesterday, being in my 20s and just hungry for the next fix,
Yeah,
whatever that was.
Yeah, the
just,
party, the event, the gathering.
I wanted to come on the world.
Yeah.
But then,
for lack of a better term.
That's my layman way to describe it. But when I see or when I talk to somebody in their 20s and I hear that wall, they have a wall that says, I know what I'm doing, fuck off. Like, there's a lot of 20-year-olds have that, don't tell me what to do, I'm going to figure it out. Yeah. And it's interesting because I think early on when I started bumping into that in my 30s, I was like, oh, I got to tell this guy something. I got to let him know. That's a tough path to take,
and
know?
You feel like an old fart.
Yeah, and then you realize nobody wants your advice unless they ask you. And even sometimes when they ask you, they don't really want it. They just want you to listen to them. Yeah. And I think that's where maturity steps in. It's like, I don't really need to give advice. People are going to do their own thing. The only advice I can give is whatever I'm doing without even saying it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Being consistent.
Try to lead by example.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's become the most prominent thing in my perspective is what am I doing to create an example of a healthy or balanced existence? Yeah. For anybody who's watching or anybody who's in my inner circle. Because at the end of the day, I'm parenting myself. Right. I don't need to parent. My kid, he's happy. He's living between two houses, and both are currently safe places for him to be in. He's without getting into crazy details, he's got a great balance in both homes. He's in love with his life. Yeah.
That's the important part.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that frees me up, there's times as a father where you feel like you're not enough. Right. Perhaps that's my own weird baggage that hangs around, you know. But at the end of the day, I've had a podcast with him and asked him those questions, like, are you happy with your childhood? Is there anything you would change? And he's like, I'm cool. And he's legitimately happy with his experience so far and where things are headed. And he's set goals for himself. Like this year, he wants to win awards in certain things, reading, attendance, math, Yeah. So I think he understands what structure can do for you, having a solid routine and being held accountable. All those foundational things in a person's life are starting to set precedents in his. And so he's starting to understand the value of organization. Right. Not fully. Like, his bedroom's a fucking mess, but
he's a kid.
He's 9 years old. I mean, something's got to give,
Yeah. You've got to let him figure some things out for himself. I mean, setting a good example is the best you can do, and you seem to be doing that. Like, you don't want to... And you found a balance, and that's good because
Yeah.
you get unbalanced when you start. Oh, you want to play sports? Okay, I'm gonna be the sports dad, and I'm gonna make you run drills even after you get home, and we're gonna because you got to get that
right.
that college
that college
free
scholarship.
college ride
Yeah.
that scholarship for sports like
Not quite.
only if he's into it that much.
Totally,
If
and
he's
that's
like,
it. You're
all right,
right.
Dad, I'm home. I want to run drills. Really?
Yeah.
Come on. If he's driven,
But I don't want to.
and that's the supportive parent is one's like, oh, you've had enough today? All right, we'll chill out.
Yeah.
And I'll let you be the one to decide, okay, now I'm ready to do more practice.
Yeah, to a healthy degree. And I think there are times when you're both in front of the same challenge.
Yeah.
And it takes some real work ethic to get through that.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a commitment that's made, whether to yourself, to a team,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, some organization that you're involved with, then you have to see it through, that you give your very best effort. And like you said, I'm not some militant drill running father.
Right.
But if he's committed to doing something, like something as basic as going to school,
Yeah.
unless you're truly sick or you're throwing up or something is
right.
blatantly wrong with you, you're going to school. And that's been the message to him, all this time. And so for a while, he would fake headaches. He'd fake stomach aches. I'd get calls from the school nurse. Declan's in here. He's
I was
got
that kid too. I think that's for me. That's a function of anxiety.
And fair enough, but again, like, you got to push through that stuff.
Exactly.
You got to
It's
learn
like-
to cope with that.
And I learned that in second grade. We just moved to Redondo Beach, and I was entering second grade in the last half of the year. Like, new school, everything. I was a mess.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, I know that was a function of anxiety.
Sure.
Because I was like, oh, I feel sick. I go to the nurse's office. I spent so much time in the nurse's office. I barely passed second grade. And that's what's like, oh shit, I need to not take advantage of this. I need to fight through this feeling bad thing in class because I need to get through school. And from that point on, it was like B's and A's and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got that wake up call for myself, and that really helped. But at the same time, both my parents were full of anxiety. They had just moved to a new town. They were both uncomfortable, and they didn't have the coolest relationship to begin with. They were always fighting when we moved there.
And this was in second grade?
Yeah, second grade, third grade, fourth grade. Things got better between them for a while, but then we moved back to Sacramento, and that's when it was over for them. But we were teenagers by then, and we had kind of dealt with all that.
Yeah.
And it's good to see that kids can deal with that in a healthy way. Like Declan
Definitely.
has dealt with that in a healthy way, which is really cool.
You can't.
Which speaks to your parenting skills.
Thanks. Well, I think just taking responsibility for the environment that you're responsible for this child. You have to
Exactly.
facilitate an opportunity to heal for these kids, because it is traumatizing, it is emotional, it's stressful. Like, they need a space to feel safe.
Exactly.
And that's all you're obligated to do, is to tell your kid you love them and give them space to process their life. Because at the end of the day, like, you can create a long list of what you're not for your child. And that will just send you in circles, dark circles, and you end up killing yourself. And I had discovered early on, all I need to do is tell him I love him and keep him safe.
Yeah.
That's all I needed to do. And I thought that was fairly profound, because I suffer from anxiety and depression, and it's easy to slip into those old stories of your lack of self-worth, especially when you are obligated to parenthood. Like, you have to, there's no way around it. I mean, technically you could opt out, but that's not going to.
Then you're being even worse.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and you're not going to get all those other things you think you want by doing it that way,
No.
So it was liberating to know, or for me to discover that, have that epiphany, like, oh, and then in terms of like sports and organized activities, if he's interested, then hold him accountable.
Yeah.
But if he's not, necessarily need to force him into
No.
doing anything.
And because you never struck me as the kind of guy like, when I have a kid, he's going to excel in every way I failed.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wanted to be in sports in high school, but I wasn't good enough. I'm going to make sure that he's good at now. No, don't be that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you don't seem to be that guy. You seem to be guys like, what's my son interested in right now? How can I support that?
Yeah.
How can I, he seems to like that. Like my nephew Charlie, he seems very musically attuned. Like he's just over a year old now, or he's almost 2. And he loves percussion. He loves drums. He loves music. He goes over to Grandpa's house. Grandpa turns on Creedence. He's like jamming along to Creedence.
Yeah.
I brought over a little hand drum for him. He's like, ooh, makes him smile. So it's like, okay, this kid is musically oriented. So how do we support that? Oh, just musical instruments. Maybe when he's a little older, he can learn how to read music, and Grandpa can pay for lessons and something.
Sure.
Like
it may go away too.
It might go away, but my dad, like, he's gotten better in my mind as a grandpa because, and even he said he is now in the position where he can be more supportive for Charlie than he was able to be for me and my sister because he's in a better place financially.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh, I want to be whatever Grandpa can do to help. You want to learn to ride a bike? I'll get him a bike. Oh, he wants to do this? I'll pay for piano lessons. Like, he's chomping at the bit to be supportive in whatever his grandson wants to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. It's nice to have a grandfather like that.
It's like we need every parent and grandparent to be like that, and the world would be a better place.
Well, it takes a community,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Imagine, a kid who is poor but being raised in a loving and supportive environment where the family did what they had to do to put him or her into whatever lessons or sports or whatever. If everyone had that, I think, a lot of society's problems would be solved. That's a huge thing to accomplish.
I think we shape people into being better for each other when they see a community that pulls together for the benefit of a person.
Yeah.
And, they witness this first person, but when they reflect on their life, they can see these things and they, you know what I mean? They see the math that's being done for their sake. And I think with Declan, he's experienced that with grandparents, with extended uncles and aunts and cousins. He's been surrounded by all of these people who adore him.
Right.
And he's never doubted himself at any point. He's always felt like, I think I'm worth quite a bit, you know, and gives him some great self-worth. And hopefully that translates well in adulthood. But we all have our shit, and like some things inevitably are going to be their downfall, are going to be their default issue they have to deal with.
Yeah, you're gonna eventually bump into something that you cannot overcome, and it's not due to any fault of your own.
Right.
It's just, hey, some hills aren't meant for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not about to go to med school. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
But hey, if Declan, in a few years is like, oh, he's doing really good in his science classes and he's doing really good in biology and math. I'm like, okay, let's get this kid into more STEM programs and really feed that muscle that he seems to really be,
Yes.
Go for that.
Well, and that's the other thing that a parent has to do, or anybody in the child's community, is when you see that spark, you got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that's kind of a disservice if you don't.
It was one kind of, I don't know, not so pleasant realization that I had about my childhood. It was like, I wanted to be a performer since I knew it was a thing you could do. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, there's a camera and I can write a thing and say it to the camera and people will laugh. Oh, yeah. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I even lived in LA for a lot of that. And so I was like, Dad, I want to be an actor. I want to be like, oh, okay, son, but not everyone can do that. You should have a real job to fall back on. And so it was always like, but that's not a real job. And I can tell by my parents' tone and the fact that we don't have much money that it would be better for me to get a job that makes more money than less money. Yeah. And so that became, I had to put that on back burner. Yeah. And I think that if my parents hadn't had their own kind of anxiety under control, they might have seen, oh, this kid really likes to perform. Maybe he should be going to performing arts school. Yeah. I think man, that's one thing, that one regret, like, man, if because I didn't know. I just knew I wanted to do a thing.
Yeah.
The parents are the ones who have the experience, like, oh, my kid wants to do a thing. Oh, what's the best way for them to do that thing? Oh, in this case, it's a performing arts school. Or in my sister's case, it probably would have been music lessons.
Yeah.
Like, she took a liking to piano, but she never had lessons. So everything she learned by ear.
Yeah.
If they had sent her to a place where she could apply that desire, she could be like, you know, a wonderful musician or something right now.
Yeah.
You don't know. You gotta pay it, but you pay attention to your kid. You know, you're involved in your kid's life, so you know what he likes, what he doesn't like. You see when the fads that he's into are fading and all that.
But
stuff.
also, you know, what you were saying is, I wish somebody would have seen some of the things a little differently in me to help hone those things in.
Right.
I think that translates in your parenting too. When you know that's how it was for you, you pay a little more attention, sort of, you know, automatically to what your kid is doing, because you want your kid to have those opportunities. Inherently, that's what, you know, parents who give a shit end up doing anyways. Yeah,
I mean, parents who give a shit. My dad, you know, he always said this. He's like, I want to make sure that you have a better life than I did, and he accomplished that. We grew up with a much better life than he had growing up.
Yeah.
In the fact that we weren't hooligans and we didn't have juvenile records with the police by the time we were adults. And then, of course, if Amanda and I have kids, that would be the goal, is that they have a better upbringing than we did. And so that's one thing. If our kid or kids show any kind of inkling towards performing arts, it's performing arts school. If our kids are really into science, math, whatever, it's a STEM school. But I think it would be private school. Like Amanda said, if we have kids, no public school. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't think I'd reach that echelon of society. I thought my best bet through like my 20s, whenever I thought about what if I did have kids. Yeah. Well, the best public school possible is what we're going for.
And I'm going to say something, and not just because my kid has always been in public school.
Yeah.
I have thought about private school and still think about it. But I think it's beneficial long-term to experience both.
Absolutely.
I think public school and how the masses are learning and understanding, you know, socially, it'll give you an advantage.
Here's where I think it would be. It would be like elementary school, public school, middle school, public school, high school. That's where it's like, okay, what are you passionate about, kid? Yeah. Like, you've had time to figure out things you like. What do you like? Oh, I like, you know, acting. Okay, you're going to go to performing arts high school and then on to college from there.
Yeah.
Science. Oh, I want to be a doctor. Okay, you're going to a STEM high school and then college from there, because that school is going to prepare you for that hopefully lifelong career that you hopefully enjoy. Yeah. But yeah, public school is very important, especially in the early years for social development. Mm-hmm. Very important. In fact, it would probably be a thing. I wouldn't want any kid of mine going to private school in the early years. Yeah. I want them preschool, kindergarten, first grade through sixth grade with a good, you know, cross section of society. Yeah. Yeah. That really lets you know, like, a proper place to put yourself in this group. Right. And it doesn't give you a sense of superiority over anybody for what I saw kids. Yeah. In high school, honors high school classes that were like, oh, he thinks this shit don't stink. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. He thinks he's smarter than the teacher. Oh my God, this guy. And they usually come off as assholes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So I don't want any kid I have to come off as an asshole.
Yeah. I still did that. Even though I went to public schools, I still spent time being an asshole.
Yeah, everyone does.
It's a guy thing, I think.
It is. I don't know if Amanda were here. She'd tell you it's more of a girl thing in high school than a guy thing.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's true.
Guys will get in your face and, like, spit insults at each other. Yeah. Women will tear each other down psychologically. Yeah. Like, yeah. Well. Guys will abuse your ego. Women will abuse your psyche.
A lot of the women I've met don't like other women.
Yeah.
Well, at least the other women I relate to the most don't end up they don't spend a lot of time creating relationships with other women for that very reason.
Yeah. And I think Amanda's kind of that same way. And she calls it out with disgust whenever she sees it displayed on like TV even. It's like, see, this is why. This is the problem. Like
That's such a bad reference, though.
Like teen women are showing, teenage women are being a bad example for children, little girls, and how to act as a teenager. Like, oh no, what you do as a teenage girl when you get in high school is you start stabbing backs. Because you got to look out for number one, because it's you or them. Because you better be better to not be the victim.
Yeah.
And she has a lot to say about female psychology and that, but they are more psychologically damaging and brutal. Like, I even think about conversations I had with women who I'm not at all in a relationship with in the past. And looking back, they were on a different level. They were playing a different psychological mind game thing than I was in this conversation. Like, I wasn't on the same page.
Yeah.
And this woman was like queuing me up to. She was prepping me for something. Like, and often it's trying to take advantage for a place to stay. Like, it was like late in my drink, like towards the very end of my drinking days. It was like I met a girl at a bar. Went back to her place. We made out a little bit and said goodbye. And then a couple days later, she's like, my friend, like drunks, my friend locked me out of my place. It's raining. I don't have a place to stay. Can I stay at your place? I'm like, I got work in the morning. I'm sorry. And that was like, I'm too old for this shit. That was my first I'm too old for this shit moment. I was like, oh, I'm too old for this shit. No more bars, late night bars. This is nonsense. I'm in my mid 30s and I have this girl who's in her early to mid 20s. Like, my friend locked me out of my own apartment.
Yeah.
She's drunk. She passed out. I don't have a place to stay. I'm like, this is not my scene anymore.
Yeah,
I
good
don't
luck with
do
your
this.
lesson.
Yeah, that's a life lesson for you to learn, lady. But so all that to said, I think it's good for kids to at least spend their formative years in public school to get fully better socialized.
Yeah. The thing with women and their antics, I remember I was interested in this one girl or woman. She was a single mom and beautiful black woman. I had never dated a black woman. I don't know if that even matters at this point, but I remember it was kind of like, I don't know if I want to be serious with anybody. And she was making me work. I remember she called me one time because her car broke down. And I just remember feeling like, you fucking bitch. This is when you're going to...
that should be a sign.
Yeah. And I was like, you know what? This is not worth my time.
Yeah.
And it was good because it was like, I finally was understanding the manipulation that happens with a certain, I don't know, aesthetically appealing kind of gal.
Yeah.
And the world is different to them. They, their resources are different from maybe less attractive women or women who aren't really interested in that game, Yeah. And I was so vulnerable to that for quite some time. And it was all my own self-worth, It was like me trying to prove my worth to somebody else and going through all these stupid steps.
It's a codependency thing.
Yeah. And
I know exactly.
Man, what a weight off my shoulders to finally catch wind of that and be like, good luck.
It's comforting but at the same time can be anxiety producing to be with a woman who wants you around and doesn't need you around.
Yeah.
Like,
oh man,
Amanda wants me around, and that's what the thing that pulls me out of the depths of depression is like, no, she wants me around.
Yeah.
She doesn't need me.
Yeah.
She doesn't need me for anything.
She's a real friend.
She wants me here.
Yeah.
And she's willing to put up with my shit just as I'm willing to put up with her shit. Like,
how are your fights? I mean, do you guys fight often?
They don't last very long. Usually we spot a miscommunication right away. Yeah. And I think the biggest one was like, I wasn't being fully forthright with my feelings. Like, she likes to binge watch TV a lot.
Yeah.
And I am not a binge watcher.
Yeah.
So, and I get a little anxiety trigger when I fall asleep and she's watching a show, any given show, and I wake up in that show. So I'm falling asleep to this show, and I'm waking up to this show. I'm like, ugh! Is my whole world just TV, soundtrack, nonstop? It gets on my nerves. And she's like, tell me when that happens. But if I tell you when that happens, we're going to fight, and you're going to fucking yell at me, and you're going to kick me out. Like, oh, wait, no, that's just my baggage. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sorry. It annoys me to hear the same thing when I'm going to sleep and when I'm waking up. She's like, okay, I'll change it. No big deal. I'm like, oh, that's how that's supposed to go. That's how that's supposed to go. It's not supposed to devolve into a huge fucking screaming match.
Right.
But that's been my experience up to this point.
Yeah.
So, and that's been her experience up to this point. So we're both like learning to deal with our PTSD properly together.
Yeah.
And we both seem to have kind of a similar PTSD related relationship past. But the fights, so they don't get too loud and they don't last very long.
Yeah, likewise for me.
And that's how you know you've got a good situation going.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's like when the dog wakes us up in the middle of the night, like 2 a.m, because she needs to go out, and I'm dead asleep, and she wakes me up, Maddie needs to go out. I'm like, for a second, I'm like, motherfuck. But, hey, it's better me because she has to get up early and go to work in the morning. She has lives to save. So it's better me losing sleep than her losing sleep. And I'm on board. And it's like, I'm not mad about it anymore.
Yeah.
Just that initial, like, man, fuck, I was sleeping.
Yeah.
But I'd rather the dog go and comfortably pee and not have a full bladder,
Yeah, or find a puddle on the floor.
Exactly. That's even worse. But
yeah. But yeah, it is nice to have somebody who respects you the way you want to be respected.
Mm-hmm.
And not to have somebody that's malicious and manipulating and always
because you're
trying
not being the person she wants you to be.
Yeah. Man, what a luxury. Seemingly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's how it should be, but it's like you go through battles, go through war to get this level of peace.
That's called paying your dues, I think.
True,
it's like
yeah.
You go through a lot of trauma to realize what you don't want in a relationship.
True that. Yeah.
That's why I think all those early 20s marriages and things, those are so empty and pointless. It's like, you don't even know yourself yet. You're getting married?
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't get married too young, but, you had yourself a little bit figured out by the time you got married.
And with respect to my emotional development and my relationship experience, I didn't start dating till I was 22.
Yeah.
Like, seriously dating. So that was only from 22 to 27.
Yeah.
Is my small window of dating, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got into a serious relationship, fatherhood, co-parenting, marriage,
Trial by fire, really is.
That was harsh.
That was a lot.
That was a hard, long, cold war.
Mm-hmm.
Not even cold. That was an all-out battle at times.
Yeah, there was no Cold War about that.
No, it was hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you were saying, when you meet somebody who's come from a similar battle or war, you deal with your PTSD together. Mm-hmm. What a nice thing, Like, I remember when we first got together, there were some bumps, and my shit would come up, and it's so anxiety driving, Like, I would get so, like, I'd shake. I'd be like, oh, fuck, here we go again. What have I done? Please tell me this isn't the same as before. And it was scary, but finding the right partner, she never was malicious. She was always thoughtful of what kind of trauma could be done if we try to solve this problem now. And she's been real good at putting space between us when the emotions are running high. She says, leave me alone right now. We'll talk in a little while. And me, I have to okay, I'll be back. And then I go off and we come back and we're both at zero and we talk. And she says what she needs to say. I say what I need to say. We meet in the middle. Fuck, it's like world peace, you know?
And I don't know. I only thought about it now. Like, how much better would past relationships have been if I had known this?
Yeah.
But then again, maybe those past relationships were what I needed to experience to learn this.
It takes two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting thinking of traditional marriage and the traditional model of relationships.
Right.
This is a little dated, you know?
Right.
And I think when it comes to education and learning about sexuality and relationships,
Yeah.
communication, social studies, those sorts of things, I think there needs to be some kind of reform because this stuff is super valuable. At the same time, though, all that hardship shaped us for this relationship.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
So it's-
exactly. Like, I wouldn't be the person I am, and I might not get along so well with my current partner had I not had the experiences with previous bad relationships.
Yeah.
And, there is a change that needs to be made. I think there's, to me it seems, and it's not just because I spent some time in LA. LA, by the way, is, oh, God. I got to tell you, like, I see more attractive people, like more attractive women in Sacramento than I did in my time in Los Angeles.
And well, this is relative to your perspective, but
Right.
what do you mean?
I mean, like, going to LA, I thought, oh man, I'm in LA, but I want to be an actor. But, like, you got all these really good looking actors to deal with. And as I would go to sets and be on sets, and, all the ladies were all like, they're made up to look their best. But I find that, like, sometimes you can see past the makeup to an extent, like, oh, she's wearing a lot of makeup. She doesn't have much self-confidence at all.
Yeah. Whereas
up here, you see a lot of women who are light with the makeup.
Yeah.
Because they have features that they're proud of, and they don't want to cover those features up too much. I just found my head turning more here than in Los Angeles, than in San Francisco. It's like, but more people, more women caught my eye up here. Like, oh, like remarkably so. Like
a little more authentic.
A little more authentic. It's like coming up here, you don't see a lot of. It seems like they put their makeup on with airbrushes and things.
Yeah.
But up here, it's like coming up here to just look at places. And I even mentioned to Amanda as we were walking around, like, I'm saying, damn, to myself, I'm that guy in the meme doing this, like, way more often than I was in LA or San Francisco. And I don't know what that is about in LA. Maybe there's an overall look that must be attained.
This is a popular perspective on LA.
Yeah. Like, you have to have a look if you want to be successful in LA. And then if you don't have that look, you need to shape yourself, shoehorn yourself as much as you can into that look.
Yeah.
And yeah, that does seem a little, insincere.
I hear more and more escape from LA stories. People get chewed up and spit out.
Yeah.
And are happy about it when they leave. I was happy for you, especially from hearing having this idea of LA through other people's opinions of it, and never really having a desire to go there.
Right.
I desire working in film, but we're in a day and age where that's possible without LA.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You don't, and honestly, I'd rather work with people up here.
Yeah.
I'd rather work with you and, everyone else that I've worked with in the past up here than be just some extra that gets ordered around, is not really involved in the project.
Yeah,
I like being more involved in the project. And
right.
in LA, it's harder to do.
And we have a wealth of creative people that we know mutually that could create that opportunity.
Yeah.
But facilitating that is an art of its own because you have to create time for yourself, find time for other people involved, and somehow find a way to implement a monetary gain without it being the driving force. Because I think that's where things get lost in translation as well. You don't, money. And it's like, it's not why we're doing this, but it is an important factor.
That's how Phase fell apart.
Yeah.
And that it was like 10 years before its time. If we put that show together now and we had the same kind of resources and the same drives in people to do it, we could have maybe monetized a little bit on YouTube at this point. But that was before YouTube monetization. So, I mean, I don't know. You get your delivery guy's 2 cents.
I don't get paid anymore.
Oh, no?
They took, I can't remember what the email said, but I think it was relative to the amount of like actual subscribers I had versus the foot traffic that was coming through those videos. It didn't matter. I wasn't really trying to make I do have a regret not fully understanding that potential early on, because that one video, Stupid Horses, got enough attention to where if I wanted to capitalize on that, if I was creative enough and had enough discipline and work ethic, hard work ethic, I could have made something happen.
Right.
But maturity-wise, I wasn't ready.
Right, exactly.
Just like I'm not ready to have millions of dollars in the bank.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready to handle that attention. I wasn't ready to handle that responsibility.
Right.
It's, you know,
in your frame of mind, that could have been very bad for you.
Absolutely. And then going back to what you were saying about what could have been in terms of like parenting and the skills I maybe could have had, the schools I could have gone to. You know, the way I like to think of it is you went through your shit in the life that you had.
Right.
If you had a different life, you still would have gone through your shit. It would have just been different.
Yeah, it's like you gotta don't make that thought process of what could have been a regret. Yeah. Make it a kind of meditation on where you are.
Sure,
like,
sure.
You know, had my parents been more attuned to where my kind of desires and talents were headed, maybe they would have put me in a performing arts school. Yeah. And maybe that would have made me better equipped to be, you know, doing theater right now as an adult.
Yeah.
Instead of going back to school to learn theater as an adult. But at the same time, I wouldn't change anything, because then again, I wouldn't be the person I am right now. I'm pretty happy with who I am right now.
Yeah, and in terms of getting into character and working as an actor in a story, you know, you're able to pull from real life experiences.
Absolutely.
For some really cool characters, you know. You're going to be able to play such a larger variety of emotion than somebody who hasn't had,
because I've gone through and I've actually experienced those emotions legitimately
for long periods of time.
I can call back and get myself into that frame of mind.
Yeah.
Which I remember doing, like, one of the first things we shot for Phase was like, oh, okay, you just had a fight with your girlfriend and now you're going to film. So that informs your, okay, let me think back, because I've actually had that fight with the girlfriend before.
Yeah.
What kind of frame of mind was I in when that, okay, all right, I can do that. So it's like, if you didn't have that adversity in your past, you'd be faking it. You'd be like, how would I react in this? I don't know, but let me see how I would react. No, how did I react?
And I think
in
that's
that
how,
situation.
Yeah, and I think that when good musicians, people who have been doing it a long time, who are really good at it, and it's natural for them, I think they are always connected to their emotions. I think they're always using music to channel into their real authentic self. And I think that's why they're so successful, is because their music reflects that internal struggle of their own. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the greatest careers you could possibly get if you're musically inclined.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, this is an obvious, again, not meant to be a plug, but I just recently listened to Pete Townshend's autobiography.
Okay.
And that's exactly what he's all about. Like, since he was a kid, he heard music in his head. He just felt it and heard it. And his whole life was a quest to find that music that he heard as a kid. But in that, he became, you know, he learned how to read music. He became a professional musician. And it's in his family. His parents are musicians. But the whole thing he's talking about, you know, my career and doing this with The Who, and, you know, but all this songwriting is an attempt to address something, to address this thing from my childhood that seems to drive me. And it's about, you know, psychological and physical abuse, and maybe sexual abuse. And like, that informs a lot of Tommy and a lot of the music. But all that to say, those real experiences, that real emotion that he's tapping into to write those songs, that gets conveyed into all those number one hits. And like, people connect. So many people connect with that music. Yeah. And they might not even know why. Like, maybe I didn't know why I connected with any given piece of music. And hearing the artist talk about that, kind of, oh, maybe it's because I'm no stranger to childhood trauma, that this idea of this helpless boy who's being just handed around. He has no say in what happens to him. These people, they could treat him well, they could treat him poorly, and it doesn't matter. It's happening to him. How does that affect him as an adult? And it really lets you get meditative about that kind of thing. Anyway, all that to say, what you were just talking about, I just heard a lot about that in an audiobook.
Yeah.
And so musicians, if you have trauma to tap into, experience to tap into, that's going to make for better songwriting. That's going to make for better performance. It's going to make for a better story.
Same goes for acting.
Yeah.
A lot of the greatest actors out there tap into. And what's interesting about that is if they don't have a good environment after the performance or during the performance, or have a supportive team around them, easy to get lost in that deep diving of character work.
Yeah.
But in terms of a creative lifestyle or a creative career field, the more authentic you are to what's going on within you, and the more relatable that is, because, the truth is sort of sugar-coated in most instances with people.
Yeah.
We don't really have time to get deeply involved with each other on a day-to-day basis.
No, not when there's tons of dumpster fires going on all the time. It's like, wait, no, we got dumpster fires. Like, we can't have a meaningful conversation about society because we've got problems.
Yeah.
We've got all these problems to deal with in society. And that is detrimental, I think. It would be nice to be able to take a break from the dumpster fires and get some analysis in.
Yeah.
I think we're missing the analysis part of all this nonsense, and I think that's what's leading to more and more people getting burned out about the current political state and everything else. It's like there's so much going on. You can't deal with all of it, and a lot of people just give up.
Yeah. Well, I think that's for me inadvertently. Well, let's put it this way. I knew I wanted to do something. I signed up to be a police officer.
Oh yeah. I never got a call.
Yeah, no, and I'll explain that.
Okay.
I'll be brief about it because I think I've talked about it in other episodes. But I signed up to be a police officer. The reason for that was, as an adult in the world we share, I saw the commotion about law enforcement.
Right.
I saw the commotion about racism and politics, and all I hear is outrage and a bunch of chatter. But what's really going on? I'm smarter than that. I know there's more than beneath the surface, So I thought, well, the only way to really... And I had just come out of a crazy real-life leadership experience. From start to finish, I was involved. I was a big part of the team, and then I was pushed out. Fine. All of it was completely fine. It was such a great life lesson. But I was left feeling sort of empty. I was left feeling like I have all this value now as a person who understands the importance of leadership.
Right.
And I thought, well, what can I do in the community that would give me an opportunity to get involved with leadership? And I thought, well, police officers are that, or should be that. Law enforcement.
Ideally, yeah.
Ideally,
you can trust your neighborhood cops.
Absolutely. But who are the cops? They are us.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the right to an opinion unless I do something.
Right.
I have to get involved. And whether that's through politics or through community service or whatever the case is, I need to do something. So I felt obliged to try and join the police department. Went through the whole process, took the first initial written test, passed that score-wise, and then got set up to do the initial interview, questionnaire, and then physical test.
Okay.
All of it, done, all of it. Now, in part of the questionnaire, during the questionnaire, you're asked very intimate questions about your past, and you're going to take a lie detector test. And they make it very clear during the introduction of this questionnaire. They say, "Listen, guys, we just want the truth. That's it. We don't want to get you in a lie.
This isn't an entrapment thing."
No, and each department is different. Different cities do things differently. I was under the impression that the truth will set me free. Mind you, I don't have any crazy dark past
No.
that I'm worried about.
Right.
There are some sketchy situations I was in, but I was upfront and honest about those things. I wrote all that stuff down.
Yeah.
And so I went through this whole process of trying to get inducted into the, Sacramento Police Department.
Right.
Meanwhile, as I'm physically training and getting ready for this, my knee started acting up.
Uh-oh.
And I have a bad knee. I tore my ACL back in just after high school, and I never got surgery. As I've gotten older, I'm heavy. The work I do on a truck, all this shit adds up. Right?
It piles on.
So physically, this wasn't really going to work anyways. Right. But then I also got a letter from them saying, we did not pick you. At that point, my head starts doing what it does with rejection. It's
going down the dark path.
I'm inadequate. Yeah. Something's wrong with me. I told them the truth. A little animosity sets in. I'm like, what the fuck is their problem? And fuck the police. It's sort of the essence of that. Like, I'm not good enough. Why? But after gathering myself after processing all of that, and I know better. I know that when I'm dealing with that, I need to, keep it in a safe space.
Yeah.
I can speak to those I trust and vent when I need to and so forth. But, be reasonable about it. But at some point I was like, oh, that's not the part that bothers me. What bothers me is I still need to do something. Right. I still need to give back. I need to find a way to be involved. And like you were just saying, which this is what this ties into, is the conversation's lost. We don't, with all the dumpster fires, we don't have a lot of time. And doing a podcast enables me to have those conversations.
Exactly.
And to put it in a public forum allows other people to feel safe in the same thought process.
Right. Like, hey, listen, you're not the only one who hasn't gone crazy.
Yeah.
There are people out here who want to analyze this dumpster fire and want to, in whatever way they feel philosophically benefits society, work for a better change.
Yeah.
And those are the conversations that need to be had. That's why I want to get back into podcasting.
Yeah.
Because I want to do more focused on current events and the climate and how climate change affects society.
Sure. I'll have some questions for you later on that will make it kind of like that, but they're more of my own curiosity.
I wanted to really quick touch on, because I had this thought, a shower thought this morning about the police corruption and all these body cams getting turned off and sketchy things. It's like, I don't have a problem with the police. Like, a lot of people want to just blanket blame the police for all police violence. It's not the police that need to be blamed. It's bad cops. And I have a problem with the whole, you protect your own thing when your own is a toxic, negative force within your unit.
Yes.
It's like a good cop who protects a bad cop is worse than that bad cop.
Absolutely. Guilty by association.
And we need to don't let that sense of fraternity toxify the whole thing. Like, there's a sense of fraternity, and absolutely there should be. Brothers in blue, sisters and brothers in blue. You guys are the police are absolutely, they're law enforcement. They're necessary for people to feel safe until the people start feeling unsafe around them. If people feel unsafe around cops, it's not the people that need to change. It's the cops that need to change. And I'm not saying that the cops are bad and evil. It's just there is something wrong in law enforcement. It's not overwhelmingly wrong, but law enforcement itself is shooting itself in the foot in the correction of this problem. And it's like, I'm glad they do psychological testing. I'm glad that they can have some way to maybe suss out when somebody is getting into being a police on a power trip instead of wanting to do community service, which is more what I took. Your motivation was like, I want to serve my community. People like, I want to have a badge and a gun, and I want to be able to pull people over when I want, like hot women or non-white dudes. I want to pull them over and do something.
Yeah,
it's like, those are bad cops, and it does more to like restore my faith in the police when cops come out and say, we're chasing down the bad cops. And to have a police chief say, I am ashamed and embarrassed that I have this kind of, whatever in my precinct, and I'm fixing it. And yeah, I like internal affairs. And I don't think internal affairs are snitches. Yeah. I think internal affairs is absolutely necessary
Yeah.
for any institution that executes any kind of authority.
Yeah.
Needs to have a checks and balances in place,
Yes.
because there will be people who want to take advantage of that.
Yes.
And to be all, rosy colored glasses, like, no, you got to defend all cops, and they're all bad, and you got to defend all of them. No, don't defend the bad ones.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the forefathers were all slave owners. Yeah, stop defending them. If we are in a society that no longer tolerates that kind of treatment of humanity, we need to look at our history with sober eyes and say, oh, they weren't all good guys. Maybe they don't deserve to have their faces on mountains.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to kind of
Start over.
try to get Rushmore back to where it was. We definitely need a constitutional Congress again. We
Agreed,
need to
yeah.
update the Constitution.
Yeah.
We need to make the Second Amendment a little more clear
Yeah.
in the fact that a well-regulated militia, that means you have to be part of a unit
Yeah.
that is trained
Yeah.
and respects their weapons.
And checked on a regular basis.
Yeah, because and I'm glad that right now the kind of general zeitgeist is leaning towards why do civilians have automatic weapons? Why are assault rifles in the hands of people who don't need to do any assaulting?
Yeah.
And it's not, they're taking our guns away. It's like, you can have a pistol. You can have a shotgun. You can have a rifle.
Yeah.
Unless you're in the military, you don't need something that fires automatically or semi-automatically.
Yeah.
Well, for what? You need an automatic weapon to kill a deer? You're a horrible hunter.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need an automatic weapon to defend your home. What army is going to attack your home? Like home defense, you need a shotgun. Maybe
Right.
you don't even need. You need non-lethal beanbag rounds or
Yeah.
something, or rubber bullets for
Yeah.
home defense.
Yeah.
It's like there's this all or nothing extreme. Like, well, I need to defend my home, so I need a nuke.
Yeah.
Like, no, you don't. Well, I need an automatic weapon. Against what army you're defending your home? It's like you're taking it too far. This one-upsmanship of like the nth degree.
Yeah.
How much is too much?
But think about how old this nation is.
Not very.
And so we're still
Because you've been around the world. You've been to different countries. You know what history looks like.
right, and
Especially Europe.
the priorities
Yeah.
emotionally are very different and in different places on this planet.
Right.
Older civilizations have, they're not so concerned with all these liberties,
Yeah.
which is kind of weird. There's a bit of a socialist sort of aspect to their...
Yeah, you find, you know what? Hey, people in England, they're just as free to say whatever they want as we are here.
Yeah.
Except they don't have to pay through the nose for healthcare. What?
Yeah. And then and this is a little bit off topic, but
Yeah.
maybe not. But like Norway and their approach to rehabilitation.
Oh yeah, I saw that Michael Moore film, like Who to Invade Next.
I saw a different film about the
But
same.
they talked about
thing.
Norway and their reform system. It's amazing. Oh no, you're not going to be behind bars. You're going to be in a home.
Yeah.
And you're going to be held accountable for
Yeah.
being home on time and being there for dinner. And you're going to talk about what motivated you to do that crime that you're being punished for. And
But these countries have put in their dues too.
oh yeah,
They've been at both extremes. So relative to that, I think that as a nation, we're gonna push the limits until we find a happy medium.
right.
And because of where we're at technology-wise, and the exposure through media of all that is going on, it's intense, and we're not there yet.
Oh, no.
Evolutionary-wise, we're not there yet, and I think it's going to take some really painful effort
Yeah.
to get there. Unfortunately, if the planet dies a little before we get there, it's a thing. But
Yeah.
I think with education and psychological education as to what we are, who we are, and the time we're in, that is, to me, is the most profound change we could make.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where my heart is. That's without as many words as I'd like to articulate that.
Right.
That's essentially what I think is the most important thing is what do we know and how are we going to teach our kids to process this life.
And that's tough because there's technology that we're using that we are getting used to. We're learning as we go with social media and all the phone-based technologies. And it's to the point, like, there's going too far, which, in my opinion, like, my nephew, Matt, is, like, severely limiting his access to the smartphones.
Okay.
And to screens in general, like handheld screens. He's limiting that access, and I worry.
I could see Matt doing that.
I worry that it's going to be too much, and he's, like, technology is an inescapable part of life. Mm-hmm. If you're going to live in the society, if you're not going to be Amish or something, it will benefit you to know your way around this technology. Mm-hmm. Now, are there social media addicts now? Yes, absolutely. That's a problem. But it's an emerging problem that we're just now realizing. There's a congressman recently, I think a Republican congressman, who's trying to introduce a social media reduction bill for social media addiction. I was like, we don't fully understand that yet, but we're already trying to make corrective movements. Is that a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know yet.
Everything is beta relative to that.
It really is. And that's where I get a little conservative in, okay, how do we progress with this new plan? We got to try a little bit, hang back, do some analysis, see how we need to modify it, go a little bit further, hang back, do some analysis, see how it's going. Don't just, in other words, we can't just go to, like, democratic socialism full board overnight.
Right.
You know, are all nations heading that way? Yes. Is America lagging behind? Yes. Because the conservatives are a little persnippety and uncooperative. Yeah, but everyone comes around. It just takes some time.
Yeah.
Now, are we going to get there in time to, prevent mass extinction? Who knows? I hope so.
That's always been the debate, though, honestly. Every generation goes through, oh, this is it. We're going down the drain. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the world's going to explode any minute.
And we've been kicking the can down the road for quite a while.
It's always been that way. It's just, I think the intense exposure to every bit of information about it is so overwhelming and somewhat debilitating to people, depending on your ability to handle anxiety, and it changes your life, which is a ripple effect on your inner circle.
Yeah.
So again, like, as we learn how to cope with this stuff, that's why I was saying earlier that it's dangerous to legalize something that could be used to self-medicate.
Right.
Because we're not learning anything. We're merely smoking over all the issues. And I think education needs, I think, what was it? Stockton just opened up free education, free college.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
It is.
That's one of the positives.
That's one thing I'm 100% against, or not against, for, is I'm 100% for junior colleges absolutely being 100% free tuition, like discounted books, whatever.
Yes.
Should universities and everything be free? I think at that point you've got to... It's okay investing, financially into your education at that point. Do people need to be leaving school with $200,000 in student debt? No, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So, free junior college, absolutely. What that does, people who want to get AA degrees and go on and just do some job that requires that, and they're happy, cool. People who want to transfer, okay, you're going to need maybe some loans, but it's not going to be as much as going to a 4-year college the whole time. And your first 2 years were free. So that will lead to even more people going to pay college because they're saving money by going to free junior college for 2 years. And I'm not just saying that just like I just re-enrolled.
Right. Well, no, I know, but you're in the mix now.
Yeah.
It's even more relevant in your life.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's good to talk about it because just human development and the ability to even think it's possible makes a shift. You may not even take that road, but just the acknowledgement of I could do this may motivate you to make any positive change.
That's one positive thing, and it's antithetical, I think, to maybe a little bit to your main drive. But in LA, when it was like, oh, I got to get a job. I thought, okay, what jobs did I think I would like as a kid that like it doesn't make enough money. I can't do that. Work in a movie theater. And we lived down the street from an ArcLight. So I went to ArcLight. I got stoned and went to ArcLight for an interview, and I got the job.
What is ArcLight?
ArcLight is a theater, SoCal theater chain. Like Century. Down there they have Cinemark and AMC and ArcLight are the three big ones.
Yeah.
So go to ArcLight. And it's so much fun.
You got stoned?
I got stoned, got my good interview clothes on. It was a group interview, okay? So when it was a group interview, the guy comes in, all right, everyone, we're going to go into one of the screening rooms here, and we're going to do a group interview. And had everyone sit down in the front row.
That sounds fun.
Introduced, I'm going to have each one of you come up in front of everybody and just tell us a story about like a good party that you hosted or a good party that you had. I'm like, oh, I got so many of those. So, I was probably one of the oldest people there, like kids in their late teens, early 20s, maybe some mid 20s. And they're getting up there. Yeah. So I didn't host the party. I went to this party once and was like nervous. I got up there and I'm like, oh, I got to tell you about my 30th birthday party. I was living in a house. I had roommates, Midtown Sacramento, really cool, hipstery. I had my dad cater the thing. So much booze, so much partying. We had people hooking up in the back room, which was covered like they were fucking on piles of furniture and boxes and things. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. I was just telling this whole story, and then, all right, everyone, go take a break, and then so and 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 so. Thank you. Everyone else, take a break. Come back in 10 minutes. And I was come back in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. They did another one. This is a role play. All right, we do all assigned seating here, and the role is there's a customer who's taken the wrong seat, and they're settled in for the movie, and they're in my seat. Hey, that guy's in my seat. Yeah, hold on, sir. I go over, like, sir, I'm sorry, you're in the wrong seat. There's assigned seating. If you look at your ticket, you'll see which seat is yours. No, I'm good. I'm staying right here. And so I got a little rough, and I'm like, yeah, sir, you need to blah, blah, blah. And even though I got notes on that, like, you don't want to go too aggressive with them, Mm-hmm. By the end of the day, I was like, all right, we want to offer you the job. Can you start Monday? Or can you start Saturday or something? I was like, yeah, but I'm going to need next week off. I'm going up to Sacramento to watch Avengers. I was like, that's why we're hiring you. to have honest. Staff for Avengers. Oh. So
that's funny.
I'm sorry, I can't take it.
That's fucking funny.
But it didn't matter because we were moving back up here. Like, I didn't know at the time because just a week later, we made the decision to move back up here. So it didn't matter. But I got the job. I went in stoned, or not stoned. I went in a little with some THC in my system. Yeah. And I got the job. And that really like, oh, okay. I didn't get too stoned, and I was able to pull a job out of a first time interview. Okay. I am capable of things. I can do things.
Sure, build your confidence a little bit.
It's like, even if it's a job you don't want to do, to know that you can get it.
Yeah.
And
it always builds your confidence when you succeed at something you weren't even really concerned with. It's
exactly.
Like, oh, shit.
It's like, oh, I can do that. And I didn't even really try.
I am somebody. Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my one, like, fun LA story.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What a great story. What were we talking about with world stuff?
You said you had some questions for me regarding climate change. Maybe,
well, not necessarily
the world.
Climate. We've touched on a lot of the stuff that I would ask, but what's your zodiac?
Aquarius.
What about Aquarius? Do you take to that description, personality description?
Not really. I mean, I sometimes read the horoscopes because it's fun to read.
Sure.
Like, oh, what is somebody going to say? Yeah.
Aside from the daily, the initial description of an Aquarius.
No, and this is like over the past few years, as I've kind of gotten away, like, don't do any magical thinking that doesn't need to be done.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, horoscopes are fun, and thinking about the zodiac, and that's a whole fun kind of thought process to do, but I see that as more of like a meditative tool. Like, don't be playing the lotto based on your horoscope. That's no.
Yeah.
Don't be making, and this has scared me that Reagan had a astrologer. Don't be making
Well,
governmental decisions based on your horoscope. But do like an Aquarius is this personality trait, that personality trait. You can apply any of those personality traits to anybody at any given point in their life. Like,
interesting.
I remember back in the phase days, because you and John are both Cancers, and you kind of bonded on that whole and you can take a look at you and John's like, oh yeah, you can take that Cancer personality template and put it on you guys, and it matches up. But you also match up a little bit with Pisces and with Aquarius and with Sagittarius. Like, depending on the mood you're in, you're going to be leaning more towards one horoscope thing or another.
Sure.
And that brings me, like, I'm not going to run my life by it, but it's fun. It's fun to talk about. It's fun to think about. It's fun to see, oh, do I plug in there? And how do I plug in there? And what does it mean to plug into that personality trait? And do I find that as a benefit or a hindrance to me, or can it be a bit of both? And usually it's all that stuff. Yeah. You know?
I just think the daily horoscope thing is just wacky shit. Yeah. I don't buy into any of that. Laugh. Yeah, that's whatever. Your seventh moon is in your 14th Mercury ring.
When it gets that involved, it's like...
Yeah, I like you said, I think that's great for entertainment value, but as far as like making decisions in your life, I think beneath the layers that you become through your life experiences, foundationally, I think I relate to, personally, to my horoscope, pretty true. Like I relate to that stuff pretty well. And I think in a lot of cases, people have different experiences, become a different version of that. But at the core of who they are, what's in their heart, I think tends to prove to be true in a lot of cases. I think there's something to it because it's so ancient. It's such an ancient study. I think that the universe and the stars and the galaxy, we're all connected. Everything's connected. So I think there is something to be said about that. However, the daily horoscope thing is just a wacky fucking hack.
And see, and I just thought of this just now when you said that. What if, like, I can take it as fact that in some holistic way, the universe, everything in the universe is connected to everything else. I don't think we can fully realize that using our human brains that are just programmed to see patterns.
Agreed.
Like we can use that pattern seeing to try to interpret how we view the universe. Yeah. But that pattern seeking is not how we're going to plug in fully. Like, we're not going to reach full enlightenment, however you define that, with our pattern seeking brains. It's got to be something that's
when you're in this
out
life,
of that paradigm completely.
Yeah. That's what I told this lady once. She was a cashier at a store. I don't know what brought it up, but I was like, if you knew everything, you'd be dead.
Right.
There's no point in knowing everything. The whole point of life is to not know. Like, that's what life is, not knowing. You keep going because you don't know what's on the other side. But I think when it comes to like astrology and the universe and the connectedness between all things that exists in this reality, I think that it is sort of a really nebulous preview into God. And God not as in a man in the sky.
But you want to determine the greater kind of goings-on of the universe that's beyond our comprehension.
Right. And God as in an element of dimensional sort of existence. But God is just a 3-letter term we use to speak of something bigger than what we know. Right. That's what I mean, is that there is something happening that could be an argument to an atheist that there's nothing happening. Well,
no, there's always something happening.
There's something.
Where as an atheist, I get off board that is like, and whatever that something that happens, hates gays. Like, no, whatever that something, whatever you want to call a God, it needs you to make a lot of money and fuck over the poor.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God needs you to not do any substances and marry multiple women. Not my bag either, man. I'm sorry. I need, what I need from the universe is just for it to be.
Yeah.
And let me kind of figure out what my life is going to be in it.
Yeah.
And, anyone who, and that's the thing. It all comes down to we're all connected, and there's this thing that I call love or acceptance or empathy that, to me, and this is my experience, things like organized religion and, cults and other things, these ways that people get other people to organize are kind of against that. Like, in other words, God loves you as long as you do this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
God loves you as long as you're not gay. God loves you as long as you follow these rules. Like, really? So this higher power in the universe requires me to follow very specific rules and not eat fish on Fridays or whatever.
Yeah.
In order to get the prize of heaven? I think that's all. Oh, sorry, dude. I'm sorry. I think that's all bullshit.
Yeah, well, okay. So, like, when you take human personalities
Yeah.
and you take some structured faith or some system of faith and a way of life or whatever, you have highly intellectual but not necessarily developed emotional people.
Right.
And you have highly emotional people but not intellectually developed people.
Right.
These ends of the spectrum that somehow get the resources to help advocate their belief system.
Right.
That's what you were saying is what I hear. Those are those people. But fundamentally, religion can offer some great things.
Absolutely.
And that's what I like to highlight is that it's like police. There's some bad cops in that system. That's the problem. It's not the system itself.
Right. So the system, like the Catholic Church, like, okay, guys, come on. Like, let women be priests. Let priests get married for fun. If you allowed priests to be who they are, if you allowed people to be who they are, and the reason why there's so much negative sexual shit coming out of the Catholic Church is because that's a faith of repression.
Yeah.
It's a faith of repression.
Yes.
Not only that, but it's a faith of, you did something fucking horrible?
Yeah.
Just go confess, you'll be okay.
It's an extreme measure on sacrifice because I think personal sacrifice relates to discipline. Discipline relates to freedom. And I think it is the extreme measure of sacrifice. Sacrifice is beneficial, but with all those fucking idiots in the past that created this template for what sacrifice means, people in the future are now like yourself and
it doesn't connect anymore.
No, and that's what you said about the Constitution.
I did something bad. Just say a couple words and don't eat this thing, and you'll be good. Really? Because I just fucking, did some drunk driving or something. I just did something kind of bad. I just stole.
Yeah.
And all I need to do is say some words. Well, then morality doesn't really have any weight because all I need to do is say shit and I'm good.
Right.
Outdated.
Yeah. But it's all it is all these systems that are seemingly the root of issues.
Human kind of religion and human spirituality needs to evolve with our species.
Yes. And like you said about the Constitution, things need to be updated.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
That's an old-ass document.
You know what I mean?
How about a revision?
But so, let's think about the levels of outrage. It's the same thing. It's a belief system, right?
Yeah.
Religious people are the worst, or cops are the worst. I don't know. I don't know. I think that if we could break down those systems through conversation and then help our fellow man have that same conversation, eventually, at some point, things will evolve. Yeah. Things will change because we will no longer allow stupid ideas to poison the water hole. Right. At some point, we'll find a way to filtrate that system, and then we'll start really understanding our species.
Yeah, and I'm a hardcore atheist, and I'm not saying that the Catholic Church is bad. Yeah. There are elements in the Catholic Church that are bad that need to be excised from the Catholic Church if it wants to repair itself.
Yes.
Stop covering up for the pedophiles.
Yes.
Pedophile priests don't belong in your church. if you find a pedophile priest, excommunicate it, and then turn him over to the authorities for proper societal
Due process.
Due process.
Yes.
Because no human being should be above the law.
Nope. Structures and organized.
So if the Pope came out and said, "Yeah, we're cleaning house, we're ejecting all the pedophile priests, and we're terribly sorry, and we're going to pay out all the victims' families, and we're going to make this right," and then we're also going to have another council of Trent or whatever they call it to update our rules because we're in the 21st century now, and we need to stop living by 17th century rules. And there's nothing wrong with updating your religion. It doesn't make your religion stronger. It makes it weaker. It makes it stronger.
Yep.
Because you're able to readdress your convictions and see how those plug in.
Yep.
Like, I don't know. I couldn't be... if I were Catholic, I would have been out of the church after all that pedophile shit.
Yeah.
Like, well, if I don't feel safe here because I'm worried about all the children here, how can I do my spiritual thing?
Right. If you don't buy what you're selling,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to sell it.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to convey that message with conviction. I think ultimately, like if you take language out of it and you look at it energetically, and
Right.
this podcast has been a way for me to kind of say things differently to try and get my ideas articulated the right way. So I'm getting a little bit closer. That being said, I grew up Catholic. I ended up with that bad taste in my mouth that this is such a shitty organization. This has screwed up my life spiritually. I no longer trust a spiritual guide in any way. So I was a little bit damaged. But going through all the hardships I went through and understanding karma a little bit more, for lack of a better way to put it, understanding my output and my input or my intake and how that related to each other. And then my vision or version of God changed, and it wasn't like if you go to a support group, AA, they require that you have some higher power,
Right.
that doesn't have to be a traditional Christian God,
Right.
It could be a doorknob for all they. But the essence of having something to hold on to with your energy or your spirituality that will guide you in a much more productive and positive way is beneficial.
Right.
And not just to you, but the community you share the world with. All these things. So if you take language out of it, and it's just a movement of energy, a formula to set up your life to be productive in society, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
The name of your religion is irrelevant.
You don't need to go somewhere to express your spirituality. You need to go to a specific place at a specific time.
Yeah.
Your relationship with whatever higher power or whatever part of the universe you feel plugged into, that's just there. And you can express that however you naturally feel you want to.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with... I don't have any problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Like, speaking as an atheist, I think... And I've thought about this earlier as well, because I have friends in AA who are religious, and good for them.
Yeah.
But, like, what does an atheist do if they have an addiction to deal with? Like, to give into to give over to some kind of faith, some kind of blind faith in something... is something that I don't feel I'm capable of doing. Like, an embodiment of God as you like. I there's a larger universe that I'm part of, and I'm connected to in ways that I don't understand.
Correct.
That connection isn't some white bearded dude who has opinions on gays and things and wealth and poverty.
Outdated.
That is just a connection.
Yeah.
Now, the higher power, as I see it, is my ability to use logic and reason.
Your own potential.
My own potential. That's and I think that is what a lot of people call God is that. It's their executive function. It's the part of them that has an idea of what they want to do. The part of them that has some kind of sense of direction. And what religion does, I think, for most people is gives them a nice framework.
Yeah.
In which to pour that kind of feeling of yourself.
That productive energy.
And that productive energy. Now, and that's why I have such a problem when churches take that potentially positive productive energy and does something destructive with it.
That's for the weak-minded.
Right. So it's like part of your higher power, even if you believe in a God, you've got to, as a human being, I think, accept that part of that higher power is your ability to logic and reason. And if you haven't developed that ability enough, develop it. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to start learning to read even if you're older. Like, there's nothing wrong with seeking more knowledge.
Yeah.
And if your faith is strong, that increase in knowledge will only strengthen your faith.
Yeah.
In whatever that might be.
Right.
It might change it. It might alter it in some way. Like, you grew up Catholic and you're still, you're still spiritual, but not in that way. But you still have that spiritual connection. That's still intact.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, the look of it has changed, but it's still there. And there's nothing wrong with that.
You know, I think a lot of the derivative of any motivation I have for spirituality comes from human connection.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All of these relationships that I have in my life, this podcast has been a huge reintroduction to how connected I am, because social media is what it is, and I'm not going to demonize it because I think it's valuable in a lot of ways.
Right.
But
and it's still so new.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of things in this country, things are new. But my connection to people like yourself, like a lot of the other close friends I've talked to me, that is my God.
Oh, yeah.
And love is it's just a 4-letter word that means the same thing.
Right.
And I think that when an atheist needs to pull from some spiritual sense of the world, love is it.
Yeah,
In essence,
that is,
you know what I mean? Your moral compass always points to love or north or whatever you want to, however you want to put it. And that's what I'm trying to advocate is we can look at religion as a problem.
Right.
Or we can look at people in religion as causing problems.
Right.
And I think that is a lot easier to handle, because then your community, then you know that religion's okay, but how are you dealing with it?
Like the Bible doesn't say gays are wrong. It takes somebody with a certain opinion to interpret the Bible to say gays are wrong. So that's not a Bible problem. That's a person problem.
No.
And it's a matter of like, I don't know how to fix that. I don't know how to say, hey, get over yourself. Like, hey, those guys are gay. What does that have to do with you?
And
like,
if you've ever, as a person, if you've ever experienced being ostracized or talked down to or diminished in any way, imagine that long term.
Yeah.
Now that is the energy you're putting on a gay person or the gay community or somebody you deem as different. That's what you're doing, and you don't want that done to yourself. The golden rule.
No, we're all in this together.
I mean?
We need to look out for each other.
Yeah,
you know, it's like I don't need to be your caretaker, but it's like, when you were applying for the police department, I was like, oh, Mike's all right, Mike. I hope you make it, man. This is
noble
good.
effort.
This is noble effort. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you support your friends.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah, it's we're in this together. We got to be supportive, and like, so when you encounter like a Trumpster, like a red hat, like a MAGA hat,
which I never have.
People want to like, throw stuff at them, yell at them, but like, no, like, hey, are you aware that wearing that is causing a lot of negativity in the environment? Yeah. Okay, so are you doing this on are you trying to make a negative environment around you to push buttons? Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, you're kind of an asshole.
Or even better is merely to ask questions that are authentic to you, and you stay within your own integrity. I think when you want to challenge what you don't understand, which is essentially what that is.
It's better to talk about it than to fight about it.
Yeah, and to give them space to explain themselves and then walk away with no judgment.
Right.
Because people will change when they're ready, not because you want them to or you think their idea is stupid.
Yeah, it's like if you're talking to somebody, and for instance, I know a guy who's pretty misogynistic because he has a very bad opinion of his mother. And so he has a pretty bad opinion of all women. And when I ask him about it, he's like, I don't know. My mother was a horrible person. I was like, but do you realize that because she was a horrible person, not every woman is a horrible person. Not every mother is a horrible person. Yeah, I know that, but okay, well, So I'm not going to give him a hard time. He knows where he's falling short personally, and he doesn't need to be beat up about it. So, yeah, you encounter a MAGA hat. Like, are you aware that this is causing negative emotions around you? Oh, no, I wasn't. Trump is a good guy. I don't listen to anything but Fox News, so I'm not aware that he's causing any trouble. Oh, okay, well, if I show you all of the other non-Fox News and you see that this is causing some social unrest, do you still want to wear that hat in public? Is it more important to stick to your guns than to be a better person to people? And yeah, that includes, not willingly wanting to disrupt society, not willingly wanting to cause shit. And I don't know if that's really a motivation for them, because I haven't really talked to anyone wearing a MAGA cap.
Well,
but that would be a question I have.
Sure.
It's like, okay, so what's with the?
Do you just want to know what their expectations are?
I do. I was like, okay, you're supporting this ultra racist, mentally not all there guy. Kind of dangerous. He hasn't done anything horrible except for maybe pulling us out of that climate accord thing. Mm-hmm. But California's still in that, so I'm happy. What are you getting out of this supporting this person? What are you getting? Are you enjoying the negativity that's flowing towards you as a supporter of this person? Are you like, oh, I matter because people care that I'm doing this?
Yeah.
People are paying attention to me because I'm doing this thing. There are better ways to get people's attention, I think. I don't know.
Well, I feel that sometimes I feel completely in the middle, because I know what I get told to believe.
Yeah.
On both sides. More so on one side, which is Trump is bad, hate Trump, he's racist, and it may be true. Here's the thing.
But that's not going to win hearts and minds by just saying that.
Right, but this is just where I find myself when I'm in conversations or I hear conversations about Trump. Because I think it's interesting, the effect of politics on me in this world. Mm-hmm. And then I'm politically ignorant. I don't know left from right, quite literally, in terms of political stances. But when I hear the opinions of Trump is A, B, and C bad, or Trump is doing A, B, and C good, I don't really know how to feel at times. Like I think for me, like if I were forced to have an opinion, I would say Trump as a person is difficult to deal with. He's very challenging to understand. That doesn't mean he's good or bad to me.
Right.
It just means I don't know how he thinks. I think that his outright and upfront personality, his blunt personality, may be a tactic to manipulate whoever's willing to listen. However, it seems authentic to him. It seems like that's what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's poisonous to the environment or not, I don't know. On some level, I think it's good that we have this person as our president because now we know what we don't want.
And that's the one good thing. I absolutely agree with you on that. Like, if we had Hillary Clinton, there'd still be this underlying, racism problem. There'd still be this. It wouldn't be as forefront as it is now. Like if we had Clinton, sorry to say, I think there'd be fewer mass shootings at this point. Especially these two last ones are like using all the same talking points that the president has used in their reasoning for doing what they did.
Sure.
Now, okay, that's a bad thing. Should that be a direct attack on the man? No. I think how best to kind of analyze him is through his actions, not his words, because words are empty. But when words inspire violence, that's when they need to be looked at more closely.
Yeah.
And so, and when you say, oh yeah, we got to build a wall because all Mexico's sending is their rapists and murderers and drug dealers, if you are ignorant to what's going on, if you're not aware of society at large, and that's your only input, then okay, that's what it is. But in reality, like, there isn't that much of an immigration problem. The problem is with the climate refugees that are coming up from below Mexico. Their crops have died. The farmers are without crops. Their economy is collapsing, and the drug dealer kind of forces down there are making life dangerous for people. So of course they're fleeing because they can't grow crops anymore, because it's too hot, because it's too hot to be outside in summertime anymore. And it's only going to get worse. And so this isn't a political us and them. The whole racist thing is preventing us from getting to the issue.
Yeah.
We're getting and the left is getting so caught up on, he's racist, he's horrible, he's evil, that might be, but that's not the problem right now. The problem is we're only going to get more refugees. We're only going to get more uninhabitable tropical zone areas, which means everyone's going to have to move north. Everyone's going to have to get used to having more neighbors. And unfortunately, because of the powers that be and the sentiment that has propelled Trump into the White House, there's going to be more violence. There's going to be more border clashes, that we will not be able to get away from it. All we can do is try to do our best to prevent the negative things from happening. And we're not going to do that by name calling. So it's like, enough yelling at you for being a racist MAGA hatter. Tell me why you're wearing the MAGA hat. Tell me what impression you're under, which is why this is the proper path, and then I will share what I think is the proper path, and we can see which one is actually the proper path. And to me, it all ties into what you're saying, love. We need to start with a foundation of respect and go from there.
Yes.
If I start with a foundation of respect for you and you do something unrespectful, I'll go based on that, based on your actions. Not based on how you sound or your accent or your skin tone or what you've done in the past. It's what you do now and moving forward that defines what kind of person you are. It doesn't matter what kind of opinions you have at that time. You might be full board Catholic and like, oh no, we turn a blind eye to the pederast priest because it's for the greater good, and that's not really, however you want to justify it. As long as you are a good person and you are putting positivity out into the world and doing good to the people around you, I don't have any complaints.
Yeah. So it's, and to simplify it, is what makes you tick? What about these issues at the core? What about these issues are the problem with these people, the people who are protesting, the people who are outraged, through conversation and with love and common ground respect? That's really the issue, is how do we get back to that? How do we get to a point where we can talk and not just demonize each other for having so like in social media, when your friends post such a surface level statement, and it can be politically driven or whatever the case is, it's a very, let's say,
I've even kind of regretted some posts like, that I did that and that was pure emotional response.
And that should be fine though, because I think at the end of the day, even in normal conversation, you throw what you think is happening out there. Verbalize it. You throw that out there, and then through conversation, you can dissect it with somebody else, with a sounding board, with somebody who has an opposing opinion.
That is a good thing.
You know what I mean? I don't think those statements on social media are necessarily bad. It's us who lazily lay into that being the truth. It's not necessarily true. And I've experienced that. I had a friend of mine, post something. I confronted him about it. I had a better understanding of what's going on with him. Now that is just a blatant statement on Facebook. It doesn't have the same depth as if I made it all up on my own. So I think that's the same thing that's happening with people in social media. Is happening in real life too. We're not having long enough conversations. We're not giving each other. We're not investing the time.
No, because there's always a new emergency. There's always a new Twitter post.
Right. And I think that's where, when people think, what change could I possibly have on the world? Well, it starts with you and your relationships.
Talk to people. Talk to people. Like, I don't know. seems to me that I lost that. Go ahead. I lost my train of thought.
Well, no, I just wanted to simplify it because I think a lot of times people will get overwhelmed with thinking, what the hell can I do about climate change? What the hell can I do about...
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that got me back to my point, which is like, so where I come from in this, and I'm trying, because I'm one of those reactive liberals on social media, I'm trying real hard to step back a little bit and be more analytical. And what I think my drive in why I get involved in that is because it's really important for everyone to be on the same page at this point. Like,
agreed.
And again, here's my other thing: those people on the conservatives who's like, how responsible are we for this climate change? I don't know if we're that responsible. Like, that's not the issue. It's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter how responsible we are for it.
Right.
We're responsible for fixing it.
You're right. We're all part of the solution.
We're the only species on this planet that we know of that's capable of thinking about solutions for this, and we need to implement those. And we're not going to get it done by fighting about whether or not we're responsible.
Yeah. Unless we start seeing cows in line at CVS for Gas X.
Yeah.
Then maybe we could team up. But till then...
Even Amanda said, because that came up the other night just in conversation, she's like, Gas X doesn't eliminate farts, it just makes the bubbles smaller. So you're not... It makes it easier to pass is all. You're still passing all that wind.
SPDs.
It's just... Exactly. They're all SPDs at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be really worried if cows were getting in line at CVS.
Move. You move. I was here first.
I got gas. But yeah, so when I see that people who are being obstructive to that, just to be obstructive, just to be assholes, that's where I get mad. It's like, dude, like the whole pro-choice thing, the whole women's right to healthcare. That's a personal autonomy thing. Mm-hmm. Like no faith, no religion, no law should be telling a person what they can do with their body.
Correct.
Or how they treat their body. So on that, but it's wrong. Yeah, according to your set of moral standards, it's wrong.
Yeah.
But we're not forcing you to get an abortion. We're just allowing people to have the choice. Yeah. Now, if you're a woman who's religious and you have serious moral qualms about getting an abortion, you're like, I don't really feel comfortable doing it. It would be better for my whatever it is, but I'm religious and it's really against my religion. No one's forcing you to go get an abortion. You're just allowed the choice. There's nothing wrong with allowing somebody the choice. And when people, so that's my stance. Like when somebody asks me about that, here's my stance.
Yeah.
Give people a choice. It's her decision.
I happen to subscribe to that.
It's her decision if she wants to side with her faith, if that's stronger, and she's like, no, I'm going to have this baby. I'm going to give up for adoption to people who can't have babies. Good person. You're an excellent person. You're a wonderful person. I'm not going to be against you at all. That's a very wonderful thing for a woman to do. Is like, there are people who are incapable of getting pregnant. So if I'm not ready for a child, and I would be a horrible mother right now because I'm still 21 or whatever, and this kid would have a better life with another family, and that's my plan, that's what I want to do, that's her right to do that. Mm-hmm. If she's like, I don't have time for this, I don't want to be pregnant, I don't have time to get pregnant and be pregnant, not right now. That's her choice, and I also have no moral qualms with that at all. It's when you're not being true to yourself. So if you are religious, and to be true to yourself, you would have to abide by your religion as that abortion is wrong. Well, you've made up your choice and you don't have a problem with that choice because that's in line with your faith and you're comfortable. Again, no problem. I'm not saying, no, you're 21 and you're not old enough to be a mother, therefore. That's not it at all either. It's about having a choice. Like, Mike, because abortion is wrong because it's a waste of life. Well, sperm is life too, so every spilled sperm is a wasted life, and therefore every man would be hauled in for mass murder after every soiled sock. Yeah. So should you have a choice on whether or not you can pleasure yourself? Absolutely. Should you have a choice of whether or not to be a parent? Absolutely. However, hey, if you got a girl pregnant and she decided to have the baby and you skipped and you have no interest in being the father, well, could you help her support this little human being that you helped create? Like, I would like to live in a world where wages didn't have to be garnished for that, where people where men yeah, I don't want to be a father, I'm not a good father, but that doesn't mean that kid has to suffer because I don't want to be a dad. So at least do what you can.
Yeah. I think that all the issues with change that we try to implement, with updated laws, updated rights to people, these things are really difficult in real life situations because fundamentally we don't trust each other. Education,
and that is horrible.
And that is the problem we have to focus on, even before climate change. If we
we need to get on board as a society and as a culture and as a species.
We need to see the planet the same way.
Right.
And I think until we are mentally stable, more so as a nation, these changes, although may be right in nature, are not going to be translatable by the masses because a lot of us are suffering. A lot of people are dealing with anxiety and depression and lack of education and, self-medication. There's all these poisonous things happening.
And this opioid epidemic is a clear sign of that.
Yeah.
And so, and here's where we might differ greatly. I am for legalizing all drugs.
Okay.
I think that if you legalize all drugs and you then take all the tax money you get from the sale of all those drugs, even the heroin, the cocaine, whatever, the meth, and put that money into education, drug education, that is not abstinence education because that didn't work.
Yeah.
I think what you need is legalize all drugs. Everyone who is a burnout, who cannot deal with life and needs to be numb to it and needs to, and if they take themselves to OD, that's sad. But I mean, people are going to live their lives and walk their paths, and some paths lead to that dark area. It's a sad, and you want to try to help people off of those paths, but some people don't want help off of those paths.
It's not necessarily that I think drugs shouldn't be legal.
Right.
Let me clear that up. I think that people should be able to make these choices without being criminalized.
Absolutely.
And
so at least decriminalize them.
Yeah, I just think that we are not evolved enough to deal with a lot of that sort of liberty. I think that it would be abused. I think that...
Much like with guns.
Yes, a lot of socialist ideas would be beneficial to us.
Yeah.
And that's why I find myself yet again in the middle, because I think you should work hard for what you get in life, and what you earn is what you deserve, right? I personally don't think minimum wage should be so high. It doesn't make sense to me because I would think that inflation would happen anyways.
Like minimum wage means you're working hard for the least amount of money possible. So if your minimum wage job, work hard, you can have the American dream. But I need to have 3 jobs if I want to have that American dream. And is that how it should be?
But your dream should be reanalyzed, reassessed, and you should have dreams upon dreams. It shouldn't be one specific dream. That's outdated too. You know what I mean? So I think, again, education on what life is right now, the current status of life, what our options are, what's available, the resources, the rest of the world, cultural differences. I think if we start focusing on how to educate ourselves in that way, then we can start working towards a world where choices of drugs it's irrelevant.
Right. And that would be the ultimate goal, because we're going to have a big learning, in this world where all drugs are legalized. Yeah, you have some people who are already addicts who's easier to get my drugs now? Cool. And maybe they'll burn out and remove themselves from the species.
And so be it.
I'm not here to run anyone else's life, but I am of the and even with legal drugs, I have no interest in heroin or cocaine or meth or anything like that. Yeah. My interest is primarily in marijuana and mushrooms. Yeah. But especially for people who suffer from depression, ready and easy access to something like mushrooms, which means that you don't have to be able to afford a psychiatrist to get things that are beneficial to your brain. Mushrooms, more studies showing that they have not long-lasting but positive effects on a depression brain, anxiety, it kind of alleviates those, allows you to be more productive in a way, allows you to not step on your own feet all the time, so to speak.
Yeah.
And the more access we have to these things, the more studies can be done, the better we can understand how it interacts with our bodies, and the more we can, specify the doses to get what we want out of it, instead of like overusing and too much and developing chemical codependencies on these things,
or denial of any use.
And you're not going to get to that acceptance by prohibition.
Yeah,
that's not how you get.
I agree with that. I do. I just think, let's put it this way, and I'll speak my own personal experience. I value deeply in psychological therapy. Mm-hmm. And to speak to that, if you find the right therapist, extremely valuable, which I recently have experienced. I found somebody who somehow has great chemistry with me and can understand me the way I want to be understood.
Good.
I think in terms of Medicare, medical help for everybody, it'd be nice if people could have a life coach. And when it comes to regulating your drug use, if you could have a life coach that says, not now, let's get to here. And then if you could have somebody who's a little more realistic and grounded with you to help guide you through things, you'd have a better shot at not needing those things, because you'd have an understanding as to why you want to use them to begin with, which again relates to education, you know. And that's where I'm at, is I want to be a part of the change. How am I going to do that? I'm not sure yet, but I'm leaning towards some way to get involved with mental care, mental health care, and mental education, psychological education, I think. And like you said, I know that psychedelics and marijuana both have great medicinal uses, huge benefits.
But like with any chemical, you need to regulate your usage.
Yeah. You need somebody to help you do that, I think, especially when you're trying to figure your own shit out.
Yeah.
You need a professional to help you say, yes, I think everything is aligned to the point where if you did that, it's justified.
Yeah. And
then you're given that you give yourself that freedom. Then a lot of times you'll do it and you'll be like, it's not what I thought.
And that's how, like, recently I've been cutting down on my marijuana usage, because like I still love smoking marijuana.
Sure.
And I still get a lot of benefit from it, a lot of anxiety ease and depression ease from it.
How much of that is nostalgic in terms of story, in terms of what you think or how you've always thought of it?
It's changed. Like when I was a teenager, I'd like stay away from that stuff. It does you no good. It does you no good. Little did I know, I could have avoided a couple panic attacks had I taken a few tokes.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was anti. I was still anti-drug, this and that. So in my mid-20s, I had a girlfriend who occasionally, with her friends, smoked weed. So I tried it for the first time, and it really didn't have much of an effect on me. So I'm like, weed, it doesn't work on me. Like a lot of people think it doesn't work on them. And then a few years later, I got a big old homemade Rice Krispie treat thing, and I ate way too much of that and got way too fucking stoned. Like it was at my dad's old house, and my sister was there, and I had just eaten it like maybe an hour before she got home. I was talking to her, then she started like sounding like wah, 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 wah. She really sounded like I couldn't understand. She was speaking English, I couldn't understand it. I'm like, holy shit, I don't like this. So my first getting stoned experience was a bad one. So I've always, going into it, when I really got into smoking on a regular basis, I came at it with I know what my limits are. I know my outside limit on this stuff that I don't want to get to. And so that's how I started. So I've very rarely gotten to a place of a level of highness that I did not want to be because of that first time. And I think that helps a lot of people with alcohol. If their first time with alcohol is a horrible, vomity, hungover one, they're probably, unless they're predisposed to that, they're less likely to binge drink more often.
Yeah.
So
first impressions are everything in terms of drugs.
Exactly.
Huh?
My first impression of marijuana was initially positive, went real quick to negative, and it's like, okay, I don't ever want to get that high.
Yeah.
And so far I haven't. But lately I've been cutting back and realizing that a lot of heavy usage has to do with my depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
And the less I'm dealing, or the less handleable it seems, the more I smoke. But as I smoke less and I'm dealing with just the daily stresses as is, like for instance, this morning, woke up early, just before I left the house, took a hit, came down here. Not enough to alter my perception anyway, just enough so that I don't feel like I'm going to get hit on the road on the way to your house, because that was the one thing that was on my mind, was like, oh, and of course today's the day I'm going to get in a wreck and die. So to make sure I can, that is not the forefront of my mind, out the door, all right, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to go do a podcast, it'll be great. And then I probably won't smoke again till tonight, like an hour before bed. It's like, okay, now time to unwind and kind of sit back and get myself into the, like, let's analyze the day, and let's do it without any kind of like, oh no, I fucked up on this. I tripped over my words. What an idiot. Oh my God, I was so horrible. That's such a bad podcast. Instead, like, no, it wasn't bad, but let me see how I can do better next time.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
I keep having this internal discussion with myself.
Yeah.
When I feel that urge come to my frontal lobe, and it's a full-on conversation in my head, it goes a little like this. Like, I'd like to smoke. I'd like to do something creative in the house. I'd like to write. Well, if I smoked, it'd be better it'd be easier to get out what I want to get out. And then it always kind of comes up in the conversation. You know what, Mike? You smoked a lot for a long time. You indulged. You made that choice. You learned who you were on that drug.
Exactly.
Who are you not on that drug long term? Do you have the capability to be creative without that drug? I don't know. And so I always talk myself into a sober place lately. Doesn't mean I'm always great at it.
Yeah.
And I've been successful at not smoking for months now. But I find that when I'm trying to reason with myself, the fact that I've already been down that road tells me I don't know who I am without anymore. And if I don't try to be creative, if I don't try to exercise that part of my brain without, I'll never fucking know. And the story will always be, I'm more creative when I'm high.
Yeah.
Isn't necessarily true. For me, this is my experience.
No, I agree with you on
You know
that.
what I mean? And I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I just...
I know where you're coming from. It's about balance.
It's a lot like religion. When you experience something that works for you,
it works
in your belief system, and it works, you kind of are. You almost feel obliged to share that with other people. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like this whole thing with spirituality. I feel obliged to, because I've been liberated. I've been liberated from keeping people at a distance because they speak a certain way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I find that isn't necessarily who I want to be. Without labeling it healthy or unhealthy, it's not who I want to be. I want to know what other people are thinking, what other people are doing. We walk right by these people that are doing mass shootings.
Yeah.
And if we close ourselves off to them because they believe a certain thing or they act a certain way, they're never going to get the help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think with an obligation or a responsibility to the masses, to the community, I personally have found ways to liberate myself from these walls I had up for a long time. And invertedly, if I'm even saying that right, but internally, I've done the same thing. There are certain beliefs about me that I've had for as long as I've been alive that have kept me from certain growth patterns. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm getting at, is like, I'm not trying to convert you in any way or another.
No, we're having a discussion.
But I think there's value in some of the perspective I have. And because you and I share this community, because you know people I know, and we're intertwined. Even when you were in LA. Your doings and my doings had an effect on each other. In some maybe minute way or some big way.
It's still there. It's still
absolutely. There. And I think because we share the world, I feel a responsibility to let you in and let you know where I'm at. Because there may be a moment like when you're trying to figure out what to do and you think, oh, Mike used to work out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like little things here, little nuances in our relationship have value.
And
know?
especially at the gym, I could use somebody to say, "Whoa, okay, hold up," because my recent like reintroduction to the gym was like, "Oh, I'm going to do 30 minutes on this. I'm going to do the elliptical. I'm going to do the treadmill, and then I'm going to do some weight machines." And I blew both my arms out on the weight machine, and I couldn't really lift my arm or even like grab anything without extreme pain because I overdid it. I was like, damn, I really should have had somebody here to say, no, that's too much, or not that many reps, please. You're gonna
Sure.
So it's like, and everyone needs somebody in their life, in some aspect of their life. If for me it would be the gym. For some people it would be like, okay, a life coach. Like if you can't quite afford to go to a shrink, get a life coach, somebody who says, okay, you have a lot of depression, anxiety. Have you tried marijuana? I would suggest trying this much marijuana at home. See how you feel. If you don't like it, don't have to do anymore. If you like it, kind of explore that a little bit. Don't go too much. Check back with me. Well, oh yeah, and I think I'm smoking too much. Okay. Ways to cut back.
Yeah.
Here are ways to cut back to a level you're more comfortable with. Or if you're not comfortable with it at all, okay, time to quit.
It's helpful to have someone to bounce those ideas off
exactly.
of. And
because if you bounce too much of those ideas off of your own brain, you don't know if your anxiety or depression is informing that decision or not.
Yeah, it's not real enough for you to really understand yourself. Well, welcome back, Reg.
Yeah. Good to be back.
I'm glad you're back. I'm so glad that we got to do this. I'm going to ask a couple other closing questions.
Okay.
Because I'm sure we could talk till the sun went down.
Yeah.
We've answered a few of the ones I would have asked. We talked about the Zodiac a little bit. You kind of gave me your stance on that, which is interesting because people are either here or there. Because some are like, it's bullshit. Some have even said it's bullshit, but this is true, this is true, this is true.
Yeah.
Which is funny to me. It's funny how people digest that information and what they do with it.
It's just a fun way to think about people and yourself and society and how you fit. It's a fun way to think about it. And you can sometimes get some intuition from that. Yeah. You're like, oh, maybe I am being really introverted. Like Aquarius. The one thing that's always on Aquarius, like introverted, blah, blah, blah. Not draining. Public things are draining. Being around people is draining. It's like, I feel like that a lot. But is that more due to my anxiety and depression? Or is it just because of my zodiac sign? Right. Oh, that's probably because of my anxiety and depression, because I learned in my 20s, if I have a few drinks, I open up to people and I get excited about being around people and I want to, more often be the center of attention and have people listening to me and stuff, to what I have to say, and making people laugh. I like that. So while that might be true about Aquarians, and it might be true about me, it wasn't necessarily true because I'm an Aquarian. It's just my truth and happens to fall in line with that. And so you can sometimes get intuitions from that if you make the proper dot connections. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm an Aquarius and has all these negative personality traits, and because of my fucking parents decided to have a baby then, if they only waited a few months, I could have been born this and been a different person. Nah, that's nonsense. But you were going to be the same Mike you always were, no matter what your sign was. You would just find different things in whatever that sign was to connect to yourself and think about yourself.
I don't think things are meant to be so finite. Yeah. I think it's all for play. Yeah. I think if there were a God, it would all be a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. It's all for a laugh. And I think the end game is, if there is an afterlife and you get to meet this, so to speak, God, it'll just be an eternal laugh because all this pain, all this suffering, if on the other side if it's better, it's kind of a bad joke. But personally,
how could you not be supremely pissed? Wait.
Yeah. Oh, there's all these Jews up in heaven that was funny. I thought
this wasn't for them. Oh, yeah, you were wrong. Sorry, bro.
Yeah.
If God exists and there's the whole pearly gates thing, and you get up there, my question is a lot of people's okay, so what was the purpose of that? I think the answer would be purpose.
Yeah, right.
You didn't just enjoy your life?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
There is no purpose to life. You're here to enjoy life, and people get joy out of helping others. People get joy out of playing the political game. People get joy out of just talking. People get joy out of a great number of things in life.
This self-awareness is a luxury.
Yeah. So it's like there's no reason why we're here. There's no purpose to be here. You're just here. So just live it.
Yeah.
And try to be a positive force in the world.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And we've touched on a lot of other stuff. Like I was going to ask about what you do for a living, which, you're going to school, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But a couple of the last questions, maybe you touched on this too, but how do you feel about America's future? Do you think it's going to get better? Or do you think it's going to get worse?
I think it's going to get better because I am one individual who's committed to that end. I think we're going to have a lot bad on the way to the better. There's going to be, I hate to say it, but there's going to be more mass shootings. There's going to be more political unrest and societal unrest. We've got a lot of challenges like on the horizon with the climate refugees and everything. People are going to have to learn to get along. We're at the point where it's like, okay, here's what humanity has been building to in this eon is like this is a very important moment. We've got to educate the willfully ignorant. We've got to get people to put their egos down for a second and realize they're just as fucked as everyone else in this world. And the best thing we can do is try to make it better for each other.
And to add to that, I think that fundamentally we need to better ourselves, proactively. And I think that's where it starts.
You've got to know where you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
It takes a lot especially for like men to like, oh, that's just my ego. My ego is telling me that I deserve this and I deserve that because no, you don't deserve shit.
Yeah.
You don't, because you're a guy, because your dick gets hard doesn't mean someone needs to fuck you. Your dick just gets hard. That doesn't entitle you to shit.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of men need to come to that realization, and it's a tough realization to come to. It's like, but my dick is hard. You don't want to fuck, but my dick is hard. Like, what an asshole. And that's like every man in their 20s.
Yeah. It's a tough decade to navigate.
Yeah.
And when you, like you said, for men, for us men who are maybe more aware of what's happening, we need to be diligent in our relationships with young people.
Oh, yeah.
We need to be open and we need to be vulnerable with them because I think when they're faced with those challenges in their manhood, they need a reference that's going to be real, authentic, and vulnerable with them.
And that's why it's so important that we are of the generation that younger men will be looking up to. We're in that, the mid-30s to mid-40s generation. That's where a lot of young men look to find their role models.
Yeah.
And that's why I've stopped calling people horrible for being misogynist. I like, oh, they're misguided. That person is not aware of all the things that they need to be aware of, and it's not their fault.
Yeah.
So instead of us lefties, instead of going and calling names, it's like get to common ground, name drop, get to common ground on whatever the issue is, and then go from there. Mm-hmm. It's like, so if I were able to speak and be heard and be understood by a congregation of evangelicals about pro-choice is not about killing babies, it's about giving human beings the choice to be parents or not be parents. And having a law on the books that says that people have that choice in no way undercuts your faith. And it's not meant to do that, and the purpose is not to do that.
Yeah.
And I think with a lot of men, and I think I'm one of those men, who don't have control in that situation, and who might know or have a suspicion, as I do, that if their mother had a choice, they probably wouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to kind of, I don't know if that's the truth with my mother. She was 17 when I was born. And by all intents, I think both my parents wanted to have babies. Maybe they didn't expect to have babies so soon, but I think they both wanted them.
Yeah.
But for a while, I had come to terms with my own perceived fact that, wow, okay, I may not be here.
Yeah.
If my mother like valued her education or her life more than bringing another life into the world, I wouldn't be here. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's almost irrelevant, though.
It is, because I am here.
Yeah, exactly. You are here, and the world's a better place. As far as I'm concerned, with men like yourself who are aware of the changes that need to be made, with men in general, with society, with the world we live in, that's what it takes.
Yeah.
There's no other valiant effort other than to be yourself,
Right.
in your authentic skin, whatever your convictions are, to be upfront about them, to be honest about them, and hold yourself accountable.
Right.
Because consistency is where people trust other people, is if you are who you are. Each time we meet, I feel a little more comfortable in being who I am. And I think that that's the key to supporting each other. Next question. What do you think of AI? You think it's going to be Terminator?
No. I think and I'm a writer, and I'm aware of the writer's psychology. So it's always about, I want to write a movie. Where's the conflict going to come from? AI, killer AI, mind of its own. It's an easy, hacky Hollywood writing trick that people have taken to like, that's the future now. It's like, no, that's not how it's going. You see how AI is going. It's integrative. It's like, as soon as we have the ability to connect wires to somebody's brain and have them control a computer with thought, okay, the next step, how to integrate that even further. So AI is tied to human evolution right now. It's not going to be the downfall of humanity. It's going to be the next evolution of humanity.
Do you think that we're all working towards some sort of a cocooning effort, like where like Transformers are going to be humans of the future kind of thing?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe that might be something like with the CRISPR babies and stuff like that. I don't know.
What are CRISPR babies?
Oh, well, right now they're talking about like we have that CRISPR thing. You can go in and you can edit DNA, and now in China they are like within the next few months the first genetically designed DNA designed babies, designed specifically. Oh, we want what's that gene that predisposes you to cancer? Okay, take that one out. Oh,
Interesting. That'll be an interesting thing.
I want my baby to have blue eyes and brown hair, and I want my baby to be musically adept instead of intellectually adept. I want them to be more artistic or more intellectual. I want them to be this smart or more prone to being smart and less prone to disease. It's the dawn of the super baby.
Yeah.
And so, look at Gattaca to see.
I vaguely remember that.
In Gattaca, it's like you're either genetically modified at birth and you have all the best jobs and you have fast tracks to success, or you're a natural born person and you're out in the fucking wasteland.
Yeah.
And so Gattaca was about a guy who roomed up with a genetically superior Jude Law. Ethan Hawke roomed up with the superior Jude Law, who was like a star athlete. He was like an Olympic athlete.
It's always fucking Jude Law.
Who is permanently disabled in a car wreck, so he's now an imperfect person. But every morning they collect up his skin shavings and his fallen hair, and he goes to work for this guy and drops the skin shavings on the keyboard and the fallen hair, because they check. They do DNA tests at this place to make sure you're one of those people. And it was all because he wanted to go to space. So he wanted to be an astronaut. You don't be an astronaut if you're a natural born person. Right. So he had to sneak his way into being an astronaut, and he accomplished it. But it was this whole thing about, look at what humanity can do if we focus too much on like genetic perfection.
It sounds like Mexico and America right now.
That's horrible, but it does. It's like I do not, and maybe it's because I grew up in California.
Don't you think we should just buy Mexico?
I don't know about buy, but I suggested the other day, what's wrong with the North American Economic Union?
Yeah.
Why not get Canada and the United States and Mexico together on an economic union, And then there's no more illegally crossing borders.
Why
You're
can't
just
we do
going to
that?
work.
It's commerce, isn't it?
It's commerce.
It's
It's like
current
just because
commerce.
there's a border there, you can't go and work. No, that's bullshit.
Money. It's all
It
money.
is. And I find that the only arguments I hear against that kind of thing are based in racism.
Okay.
So I don't know. That's my experience.
Have you seen Black Mirror?
I've seen like a few episodes. I haven't seen since it's like been on the later seasons. No, I think the last one I watched was that San Junipero one.
What happens in that?
It's when like we're just come into this, like it's the 80s or whatever, and this girl is like walking. She's like a nerdy girl walking around, spies another girl. They make connection. They like make a connection, intimate connection, and then we are clued in slowly that they're in a virtual world and that they're meeting in this virtual world and they have different things going on in real life. Well, we go to real life and we find that this young girl, is an old woman who's been in a coma for her whole life.
Right. Yeah.
And that the black girl is this old woman who's just lost her husband and she's going to cross over and be, she's going to upload her consciousness to this thing and die.
Yeah.
And so she's going full time. And so it's the exploration of like, okay. And they end that episode with heaven is a place on earth, which is so fitting because that's basically like we've created heaven with technology. And your consciousness can live on forever in this machine.
Yeah.
Even though your body dies, and you can go to whatever kind of world is your perfect world. Oh, I want to go to the 80s. Oh, I want to go to the 90s this time and go to a, Third Eye Blind concert or whatever.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept. But I like the darker ones too, like the one where it's like you ride an exercise bike all day to earn credits.
Yeah.
To feed yourself.
Yeah.
And then you have to like spend credits to turn off the advertisements in your room so you can sleep. And then that guy, he's had enough and he builds up enough credits to get on the show just to like take somebody hostage and take it back. And then he gets real popular and he gets a lot of credits to live in a real house that doesn't have ads, but he still has to front for the little guy, even though he's not the little guy anymore.
Yeah. One of the most haunting scenes in
I cannot watch that first episode.
Why? Which one? The Star
pig
Trek
fucking.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. That was. Yeah. I watched it, turned it off, and later on watched the whole thing, and it was enjoyable, I guess, to some degree. But the one that
I don't sell people on like you should watch Black Mirror. Do not watch the first episode.
I agree with that recommendation. Start with the Star Trek episode. Yeah, Star Trek looking episode. That one's fun. That's a blast. The one where there's this guy that's hired to interrogate these downloaded consciousnesses. Okay, and he's trying to get one of them to admit to a crime or something, and he's like this. This psychological like crime detective or some shit. Anyways, he's able to torment this girl who's in this machine. He's telling her, okay, I want you to say this or do this. And if you don't, then she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And in the real world, he'll dial the thing to be like 6 months and he'll come back after it'll be like 30 seconds for him. But he'll go back into the consciousness of the machine.
And for them, it's been 6 months.
And it's been 6 months. That scares the shit out of me. Like that's a version of hell, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. That's torment. And that creeped me out. But I love their perspective on the possibilities of technology. Yeah. Love it. I love the one where you can scroll.
It can be negative or it can be positive. Oh, like the one where you can review your day.
Yeah.
Oh, that one captured my imagination. Like, oh man, how embarrassing would that be? Like you do this thing and you think you came off well, and then you go back and like, that person gave me side eye. Yeah. And oh man, they weren't.
We can't ever have that technology. That's gonna create a fucking boring utopia like. Demolition Man. Oh, yeah. We don't want that. No. I'll be down there eating rat burgers if that ever happens. Yeah. Because how fucking boring would that be? You could never do anything.
I'd go broke from cursing so much.
So many bad things could come of that.
Yeah. Anyways. Actually, that's a movie worth watching. Demolition Man.
It is.
Oh, and one more Black Mirror, one that really stuck with me was the whole military one where they're going in, they're like... There's a infestation of aliens, but they've all just been modified to think they're aliens. They're actually just other people.
Yeah.
But these soldiers have this soldier chip that makes them smell nasty things, or not smell at all, not smell, not,
Yeah.
no unnecessary feelings to get in your way.
Yeah.
And then the chip malfunction. And then suddenly they can smell, and they can smell the grass, and it smells nice. And these aren't monsters; these are human beings. Oh my God, we've been.
Yeah. I think that's where AI is going, or technology is going, especially in warfare. I think that it's going to be a lot like that.
That's why shows like Black Mirror are important.
Yeah. Agreed.
Like in I don't know if you watch any of the CW shows, but this season of Supergirl, they're hitting hard on the whole immigration and asylum seeking thing. But they're doing it, aliens from outside of the planet are seeking asylum on Earth, and we're humanistic, and we're yes, of course, asylum, we welcome all, and you behave yourself and you'll be fine. But this season they've had this character who is anti-alien, and he's touching on a lot of the Trump tactics of these are less than human beings. These are roaches. Like, no, they're people. They're sentient beings who deserve respect. And so, but the show is not making the bad guys archly bad. Like, it's giving them legitimate motivations for their actions, which is important, because you don't get people from that side by alienating them. It's like, no, here's a guy who's on that side, and he has legit reasons for being anti-alien. They come with this new metal that's the strongest metal in existence, and they put the steel mill out of business. And so this guy's whole family is now out of business. Yeah, it's like his gripes are irrational. He's just taking an unrational approach to the solution, and that's where the conflict comes in. But I like that shows are like the entertainment that people go into are addressing these things. Yeah. Because maybe you don't have time for it in the day when this new tweet just came out, super racist, blah blah blah. Don't talk to me right now about solving this problem. Yeah. Because when I'm home after I've had my drink or whatever and I'm relaxed, okay, let's turn this in. Oh, see, that's relevant to today.
I think that Netflix is just as much a part of social media as these other ones. They're helping shape the thought processes out there. Right. They really are. Because I saw another show recently, Jane the Virgin, which is Adriana's favorite show. Mm-hmm. They touched on immigration too, because it's all Hispanic cast and everything. But it's good. It's good, I think. I mean, I'd do it if I was in filmmaking.
Yeah. It's okay. What do you want to say? Like, especially, and because you have a drive to be a positive force in the world, and you're finding your way to do that. One way that you already know you can do that is through performance. Mm-hmm. And you are especially geared to express these ideas in a humorous way that is more accessible to people who might not agree with you. Like, you've probably seen that in the stand-up that you've done. Like, okay, you've got an opinion you want to share. Maybe people might not fully agree with you, but if you make it funny, they can at least connect with it. Yeah. If even just for a laugh. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right. I think laughter and comedy are sort of a neutral zone for ideas. And it's necessary for like a pressure relief thing. Right. When people invest themselves in time with you, knowing that is your modality is comedy, they've already agreed. They've already made an agreement that this is something I'm going to allow into my thought process. And that's where you have the liberty to strike. Hey man, I'm more of a left-leaning person, but I'm here to make you laugh, and that's all I'm here to do. Yeah. And if you have that kind of maybe unspoken agreement, things will go better. Yeah. Yeah. What's something about you that not many people know about? Something about me that not many people know about. Let's see. Gosh, I don't know. I'm a pretty sharing person, but maybe something that not a lot of people know about would be that you have a third nipple. No, I wish. That's supposed to mean something. Is it? I don't know. It's everything magic. Means something. Not many people know that that I was born premature. that, well, a lot of people know now that I've had anxiety and everything my whole life, but, gosh, what is something a lot of people don't know? I guess a lot of people don't know that I'm not 100%, like, heterosexual, as it were. That's something that I've really come to terms with in the last maybe 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
Is like, no, there are some attractive dudes out there.
Is this all in sort of your own identity and ideology so far, or has there been real instances of you experiencing this?
I have in the last 5 years, I've experienced actual attraction to, like, maybe 1 or 2 men.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it doesn't shatter my world or anything. I'm still very much in love with my girlfriend. And,
sure.
You know, but it's like accepting that, oh, it's not 100% either way. Like, there is such a thing as being, for the most part, straight, but still finding some attraction to your same sex. Doesn't mean you want to act on it. Doesn't mean you need to get that ass or whatever. It just means that, oh, okay, I feel a little bit about that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I'm not making poor decisions in my life because of that. It just informs me of like, oh, I shouldn't be threatened if I find myself attracted to a man.
Sure.
I should just let that be what it is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of homophobia could be solved by people coming to that realization that just because you're attracted to a guy doesn't mean you want dick all the time. Mm-hmm. You could still very much be in love with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever and still be attracted to other people, even if you didn't expect to be attracted to those people.
I think that's in a lot more cases than will be admitted. I
think there are very few 100% gay and 100% hetero people out there.
Yeah.
I think
labels and old ideas are very bad for
if
mental
everyone
health.
were a little honest with themselves, they'd say, yeah, okay, I still prefer this or that, but there's some room for this other group in there too.
Yeah.
Come on, we're human beings. Human beings are social and sexual beings, and there's really nothing wrong with whatever other type of person you might be attracted to. It's imposing your will on others in that way that is wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's it. That's basic.
Don't get involved with somebody who doesn't want to get involved.
It's just boundaries, man.
Yeah, respect the boundaries.
In every system of beliefs, boundaries are where problems happen.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So, yeah.
If there was anything about you that you'd like to change and you could in an instant, what would it be?
Oh, it would probably be the severity of my anxiety.
Fair enough.
Like if I could like without substances, without meds or weed or anything, if I could just somehow find a way to turn that off
Yeah.
whenever I wanted. Like, I think anxiety and depression and stress, those are important to have, but you got to keep those balanced. And I think people with anxiety issues and depression, it's just out of balance. Sometimes medication really works. Like, and for some people, like, that's exactly what they need. It's a brain chemistry balance thing. But if I could find a way to, within my own mind, like, correct that chemical imbalance, oh, I would do that.
Yeah.
That would be my thing. And if everyone had that kind of superpower, we'd live in a perfect world.
Yeah. Well,
because you would allow yourself to apply the anxiety when you need it,
Yeah.
that stress when you need it, when you need that motivation. But when it starts getting in your way and stops being motivated and
Yeah.
instead starts being debilitating, to be able to, okay, good.
I think character work in performing is a great way to do that.
Oh yeah,
Because
you
that's
find a lot about yourself when you do character work.
Yeah.
Because you're finding where you connect with them and where you don't connect with them, and maybe where you could connect with them, and maybe if you connected with that character's personality trait a little more, you would have a better life.
Or when you are given that cue and they say action, it's
Oh yeah, because
You're
you can
committed.
compartmentalize yourself, put that away, and focus on the character.
Yeah. So I think in an instance,
That is a way to do that. Yeah,
you
maybe
are
that's why
able
I'm
to
so
do
drawn to it.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think that you're using your what would be deemed as default issues
Mm-hmm.
would be leverage in a case where you're trying to perform
Yeah.
at a high level. Is that anxiety will bring your energy up, and then when it's time to switch that character on, you're like, I'm going for it. It's like jumping off the high dive.
And that
basically.
happens to be one instance where where any kind of desire to smoke is just gone.
Yeah.
It's like right before going on stage, right before the performance, right before action. It's like if I'm on set, I need to be fully aware.
Yeah.
And I need to, even if it means tapping into my anxiety, because I can use that to inform the character work that I'm doing in whatever form that is.
Yeah.
And you want to be clear-headed when you do that.
Yeah.
Or
definitely.
else your performance has a potential of suffering.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to end this on a compliment.
Okay.
I missed you. And you are one of the, staples in my life, especially here in Sacramento. You knew me before my son was born.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're back, and I'm glad you're on a path to finding what makes you happy.
Yeah. Me too. And my turn coming back up here has meant so much, and it has really like turned a page for me personally. But I haven't been so excited about doing a thing until you invited me to this podcast. Because the one thing is like, okay, we're back in town. I'm reestablishing my connections to my family. It's like, okay, time to reestablish connections to friends. And John and Nate and Amanda, connect with them. But like finally got reconnected with Mike. Because it's been too long. So when you said you're doing podcasts, I was like, oh, I want to hear that. Yeah. He's like, oh, come over and do one. Like, even better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so happy to be back. After, San Francisco was fun. LA was fun to a degree. But Sacramento, because my family here, because my friends are here, this is home to me. And this is where I finally feel like I'm centered. I felt like I was kind of adrift.
Yeah.
And kind of like finding a way to do out there. And kind of flagging around. Yeah. And coming back here has gotten me back to a foundation where I'm like, okay, now I can implement my plans. Yeah. And so, oh man, but it's so nice to reconnect with friends and to do podcasts again. Yeah. I've been really itching to get my voice out there again to talk about this kind of stuff. Yeah, yeah. And so doing this more often is going to help. But, so this has been a blast.
Okay. All right. I love you. Bye.
Love you too.
Well, everyone I ever meet goes here in this book. And now I met you, and you're going in the book.
I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same. I'm just a wandering nomad out on the interstate. Eventually all these roads just end up looking the same.
In closing, I'd like to just say, with the goal of becoming better as a communicator, I just want to reassure you that that's inadvertently been happening. And just this process alone is, I realize with all the things I want to say, how precision can really help the other person I'm talking to get the point and move on faster. So that's a pretty cool side effect of conducting a podcast. So, but as in real life and in the podcast, it will better me all around. And I just want to say thank you to those who do listen to the podcast. I have one fan in particular who just off the bat was all about it. And I talk to him all the time. He's another truck driver. He works for a completely different company that I've never worked for, never known. And we met at a particular stop we both had. And he caught wind of me having a podcast, as he wanted to do a podcast. And now we're buds. And we talk on a regular basis, and he helps me figure out, what works and what doesn't work for each episode. So shout out to Luis. You're fucking wild, man. I love it. Good energy. And I look forward to getting better at, making friends and making sense. Crying out loud. Adios, folks. Have a great week. Check mic 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Check mic 1 2 1 2. Mic check 1 2 1 2. Mike Haley in the mix. Biatch!